What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabril, and I'm here with
Steve. Hope everyone's doing well out there.
And for you guys who have never seen the show before, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in gaming, but we always like to start with what we've been playing. So, Steve, what you been playing?
Yeah, so it's been a little while, so I've luckily been able to do a lot of gaming than I expected. So 3 major things I've been playing. So I'll take them on one at a time. So I continued and completed Sonic Frontiers.
Nice.
And most of my feelings toward that game still have not changed any how I feel. I actually do enjoy running around the open world, and I know that's kind of divisive. I do like doing a lot of that, doing all the little mini puzzles. Not all of the mini puzzles, but some of the mini puzzles running around Sonic is pretty fun. I do wish there was like real levels instead of a couple levels chopped up, rehashed levels from past games chopped up in minute bursts. That still doesn't make sense to me, and it kind of bothers me. Also, it small fact, because I know that you actually liked a lot more, you liked that part, actually, the actual levels. It is unfortunate that there is a way that they call arcade mode where you can just play those straight up. It is locked to beating the game, though, so...
That's ridiculous. That defeats the purpose.
You'd have to beat the game to unlock arcade, and I was like, oh, what's this? And when I opened it, it's all of, 1-1,
basically
1-2,
what I wanted.
1-3, 1-4. I was like,
yeah.
Man, he needs... I was like, that sucks. But it's all in all, the story gets it gets convoluted and sort of opens up to a nice little normal story. The writer of this game is someone who's been writing on and off for like the Sonic comic book, so and you can see some of that stuff. There is just like weird disconnects in the game where the beginning of the game, which I know is really where you spent your time, there is a lot of issues with the voice acting, it being just off, and the syncing, and just like low effort. And then later on it seems to get better and more on par with what we expect from a Sonic game. I just don't know if it was just the recording sessions, and I always have a theory that certain parts of the game were recorded at home due to COVID and stuff, and other stuff maybe was recorded in-house when they were able to go back to work in the office. And I kind of still stick by that because you can just kind of tell that there's something off when it's like that. But also, the later half of the game, they've always told you that it's 5 major chapters. After the 3rd chapter, it's like the game ran out of budget, and then they just rehashed the island that you're first on for the last 2 segments of the game. And it's the exact same island, so it's the same music. Obviously, it's the same puzzles. So it's almost like the game has what it's going for, but then, I don't know, ran out of time, ran out of money, ran out of ideas. The workers didn't want to work on it anymore, and they kind of rushed the ending. To the fact that there is a final boss, but realistically, there isn't a final boss. And it seems so weird because the game collects the lore of Sonic, which is very up in the air, right? It's very much like Super Mario games, where nobody really knows where some of these games take place. This game is dropping names from villains you fought in Sonic 06, villains you fought in Sonic Forces. It's made Sonic Boom canon,
wow.
Which is weird because Sonic Boom's always been sort of understood to be its own thing. But they name drop characters from Sonic Boom and talk about things that happened in all these other games. They reference a lot of stuff for Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, and not to get anybody's hopes up, especially you, there's very small hintings that they were to do, that they kind of lead that there's a lot of small hintings that they want to do a Sonic Adventure 3, and a lot of little tiny minute things that are probably nothing are left in this game that seem like they're going to go that direction.
Child Garden DLC confirmed.
I wished. I do take they set a lot of things up that like another Sonic Adventure game was happening. I feel less that's going to happen now that they did show a roadmap of DLC coming to the game. All free DLC. So there is going to be playable characters, chapters, a bunch of new cosmetics and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's stuff that was going to lead into this DLC or if that's stuff that is supposed to be sort of setting up a future Sonic game, whether it be a sequel, whether it be the fever dream that is Sonic Adventure 3. But all in all, I think I was really happy with the game. There is some sort of just unfinished polish to the game, not just technically, but also just sort of story-wise and gameplay content-wise. It just seems not to be there. But overall, it's good to at least have a good Sonic game. I was happy that it was nominated for 1 or 2 awards at the Game Awards. Didn't win any, but I was happy that it at least got it. But I'm glad that I kind of closed that chapter. I play it still once a week, just slowly grinding out the trophies, because I just have to platinum that game. It's just kind of something I have to do. But all in all, I'm really happy. If I had to give it a rate, that's a solid 8 out of 10 for me.
It's been reviewing well for especially a Sonic game. I think
it has
pretty impressive.
Which I'm really glad, just because it's a fresh idea and it's really fun. They need to sort of buckle down and just finish one. It's more finish it, and it would be a really good game. Moving on to the next game I've been playing. Playing and I have beaten it. I have completed it like 2 days ago. God of War Ragnarok. I did beat it. And this could be a whole long thing. I know we probably actually have to settle down and do a spoiler cast.
Spoiler cast for sure.
This game is I don't have enough time in the day right now to talk about it. But everything from its characters to its voice acting to the set pieces, everything about this game shows that it's a hardcore AAA game. There is one section of the game that I absolutely hate. It's one chapter. I think it's sort of consensus. Everybody hates this chapter. And it's not spoiler. I'm not going to get into it. I'm going to be as vague as I can. It's the first time you play as Atreus. I think consensually everyone hates that chapter. Not that I hate playing as Atreus. Again, vaguely spoiler. You play as Atreus You play as Atreus multiple times in the game. And all those other times I'm good with. It's the first time you do it. It's the first time doing. It's important stuff. But let me tell you, I wish they contacted Kojima and was like, "Hey, direct an 1.5-hour cutscene for us," because I would have preferred watching some of that stuff happen. I won't get into what it was, but
again, that's a slog, though. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, but again, it's so nice to play such a AAA game, and this is when it started solidifying other things that I've been doing. The big thing I like to compare this game to, because this is the second big sequel that we got this year. Early in the year, we did play Horizon. Which, again, I gave up on maybe 4 hours in.
It was early.
Very, very early. And I think I just realized I just don't like Horizon that much. At least right now I didn't. It took me years to beat the first one. It's going to probably take me years to beat the second one unless I decide to go back to it further. But God of War, I could not wait to, not rush through, but play, explore, here talking to Mimir, talking to other characters in the game. Everything about the game is fantastic. Besides that one section, and I do have my small gripes with the way that it ended, which is all stuff we can discuss in the spoiler. I was so happy to just experience this game. This was something I've been sort of craving in video games in a long time, where it's not just, how many points can you do, how many do this, it's, what's the next boss battle, what's the next character going to say, who's the next character I'm going to meet, and it just kept me wanting to go and go and go. And once I completed that journey, though there is some endgame stuff I need to complete, I was happy that it was its complete thing. I don't expect any DLC to this. I don't want any DLC to this, very much like we saw in the first one, where this is the game, this is the story. So I'm just head over heels for that game. Like, I do want to go back to it. I think the combat is amazing. They refined a lot of issues I had with the first one, from fast travel to just looking at the map to how to do some missions. So completely hats off to them, to the team at Sony and everyone at Santa Monica, because that game is just great. Absolutely great. And then the last thing I've been playing, I'm only a few hours in. I was gifted this. I've been playing Marvel's Midnight Suns. I have been playing that, specifically on my Steam Deck, because I thought I was going to get away with using cloud saves, being able to play the game on my PC and on my Steam Deck back and forth. For some reason, the developers have foregoed that, and they are not allowing cloud saves.
I didn't know they could do that.
Yeah, neither did I. So, lo and behold, I played the first 2 hours on my PC. At night, I'm all excited. I get in comfy. You know what it is, getting comfy in your bed. You got your Steam Deck on, and my save's not there. There is a small feature that lets you skip the tutorial, so I just redid it, and I was like, that's fine. I'll just upload my save from Steam Deck to PC. And of course, how upset was I the next day when Now that I'm like 5 hours into the game, my save's not on PC. So some reason, don't know what Firaxis is doing. I don't know if that's something you can patch in. There is no cloud saves on Steam for Firaxis for Marvel Midnight Suns, but I'm enjoying it on Steam Deck. So the game itself is pretty fun. It's weird that it's been touted so much as this, Marvel XCOM game, where it really is not. The similarities to the XCOM series with them pretty much end at their name. Some of the movement obviously is very familiar, but this game isn't a grid-based movement. It's not a grid-based tactic. It is almost just a card-based RPG, which is not going to be for everyone. It's what won me over, because I didn't want a straight XCOM coded, Marvel game. So it is interesting to me. I do like to see some of these characters. I just also have this super unpolished finish to the game. The cutscenes are terrible. They actually have, I think they're almost pre-rendered, so they have that pre-rendered white fog that we love to see that on our games. The character models are terrible. If you take a time, if you look up their Tony Stark without the Iron Man costume, it is the most generic NPC I've ever seen. It is wild. If you thought the genericness of Marvel's Avengers by Square Enix was bad, just wait and see. It is pretty bad. But it shows some love. It does show, and that's my gripes with it. The characters have the love in them, right? Again, voice acting is a little wonky, lip syncing is a little wonky, but who these characters are, how they talk, how they interact with each other. It's very early, so none of the stuff everything I've seen has been in trailers. Seeing a different relationship with Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch that most people are used to, because obviously the MCU takes over all Marvel. Seeing them as a sort of teacher apprentice thing is pretty cool. It's cool to have some of this lore with the Midnight Suns. It's also been just so while since we've seen some of these characters, having Blade and Nico and some of these characters that aren't as known in the Marvel universe. It is really exciting to see it, so I'm having fun with it. The card-based system's a little too random. It reminds me, in good ways and bad ways, of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, of how random that deck could be. But I'm finally getting to the point where my deck is starting to be curated a little bit more. Got a few characters, got those fun guys. Of course, you got your Spider-Man, and that helps you sort of establish your way of playing. So I'm actually really enjoying it right now. I'm hoping some patches come in really quickly to start fixing some of these gripes and issues I have, because they're small ones. And the game obviously, for some reason, rushed out, which is weird because it took a couple delays. I think this game easily could have been delayed a little bit more, and it would have benefited from that, obviously. Get away from God of War, and just have some time for yourself. But all in all, it's solid. I think maybe that's the price is what's scaring a lot of people away. And I didn't want to buy it because they're talking how many hours it takes to beat the game, and who knows how long it'll be. But all in all, I think it's a solid game so far, and I'm hoping it really gets to the point where it hooks me. I'm kind of just doing it day by day sort of situation. So that's all I've been playing. Just a little. Obviously 2 big games between Sonic and God of War, and now it's sort of capping off with Marvel Midnight Suns, at least to carry me over to our next big game that most everybody's waiting for, which is the Crisis Core remake. So that's all I've been playing. Bro, what have you been up to?
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Midnight Suns, because I won't lie to you, I completely forgot that game exists. Like, you mentioned it, I was like, oh, I forgot about that game existing, let alone actually releasing. So it's very interesting to hear your thoughts. I haven't had a ton of time to play, just because I was away from home for quite a while. I'll just jump into it. God of War, I'm also playing. I am 15 hours in, I think 14 or 15 hours in, and I'm really just slow rolling this game because I'm really enjoying it, and I'm kind of savoring it because for a while between this and Crisis Core, that was all I really had for quite a while, and I didn't want to have nothing to play because I opted not to play Pokemon just because of more so hey, Christmas time, don't want to spend a ton of money on games right now, I want to lock in on something. And then apparently Scarlet and Violet are complete stinkers, so I kind of dodged the bullet there, and so I was like, all right, let me enjoy God of War and not rush through it, because I'm really having a great time with it, and it's kind of getting better, funnily enough, as I play it. As I get deeper, it's getting better and better. And yeah, so far I've loved it. I 100% know exactly the section you were talking about, and yeah, I felt the same way about it. Thankfully, that playing with Atreus gets so much better over time as you unlock different abilities, and eventually it gets to a point where there's actually some really fun moments with him. So yeah, God of War Ragnarok, very good. Definitely have to do a spoiler cast on that because there's a lot to unpack here in terms of the narrative and the gameplay and how it matches up as a sequel and stuff like that. So yeah, but definite thumbs up for me. Anybody who has a PS5 or even a PS4, to be honest, because I think it's backwards compatible as well too, right? There's a last gen version, right?
Yeah, it's a cross-gen game.
Perfect. Yeah, so yeah, if you have a PlayStation, you definitely want to play this game. And apparently this works very well on last gen too, surprisingly. So shout out to them. They did a killer job on this. And actually, I also got my hands on a cheap copy of Modern Warfare 2. Call of Duty, big game right now. A lot of people are liking it. And so I played 3 modes so far, basically of major 3 things. I played the very intro to the campaign, so I can't speak super hard on that. But from what I played so far, very, very good. Liked what I played so far. I played Warzone for the very first time. That was a very interesting time. It's a bit much for me, I think. Especially when it comes to like battle royales, I'm very I played a lot of Fortnite, and that's very kind of fun, light, people are dancing experience. This is pretty hardcore and very, very fast. I am not able to keep up in that regard. But it was an interesting time. I totally get the appeal of a Warzone. It's just not really my thing. And then I also played like a classic team deathmatch and then like a CTF match or something like that. Or like what, I don't know the name of it. The ones where you collect the dog tags when you kill somebody. And again, Call of Duty games these days are just so much faster than when I used to play. Because I used to play Black Ops, like Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2 era, like around there. So we're talking like 2013 maybe. The games have exponentially increased in speed, and kind of like navigation and everything, and combat speed and encounter speed are so much faster now. So I was not doing very well. But yeah, no, the game is very, very solid, very, very polished. I'm still not rocking with Activision, of course, but getting a secondhand copy kind of alleviated that and everything like that. But yeah, I'll report more on the campaign as I get a little deeper. I've only really kind of dabbled in it, but that's everything actually I've really played. Relatively soon, probably later today, I'm going to jump into the new set of Mario Kart things that, I play all of those as they come out. As everybody knows, probably, it's like probably my favorite game, or one of my favorite games of all time. So I always having a good time with that. I'm definitely going to jump into that, and I got a couple other things on my backlog. Probably at some point I might find like a super cheap secondhand copy at some point if I can of Pokemon, and maybe I'll give that a shot, but I am sure as hell not paying those $60 for that. I want to give them a little time. Maybe they'll patch it, maybe they'll fix it, maybe they don't, maybe it's just a stinker forever, and maybe I just skip this gen. I don't know. But yeah, that's everything I've played so far.
Yeah, no, interesting. Yeah, I know you were in vacation mode, in a sense, so I knew you were missing out on some of this stuff. But again, luckily, no, knock on wood, community's been good on not putting spoilers everywhere. You're pretty much off most social medias anyway, so
yeah, I haven't had any spoilers, let alone what they don't tell you is that like you get off of social media, I don't even know what reception's like of things. Like like something will come out and I'm like, I don't know if people even like this game. Like I don't know. I assume people like God of War Ragnarok. I don't know if people like that game.
Yeah, people love that game.
Good, because I'm loving it too. And yeah, I'm completely off of social media, so I don't really have to worry about spoilers for really anything. And so right now I'm at a point where I've not beat that game and I do not know how it ends. So I don't know anything about it past where I'm at currently. So, which is a really nice feeling. It's actually kind of nostalgic to be in this position where you like play a game and you don't know anything about what's coming. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so that's everything I'll play. I'll probably have more to report in the next episode now that I'm back in kind of full gaming mode. But we do have a big story to jump into, one of 2 major stories. The First of which is the Game Awards. So this year's Game Awards happened. We have a whole bunch of winners and a whole bunch of announcements. We're going to tackle the winners first. So we'll go category by category for the ones that are interesting to talk about. And we'll kind of go from there. So first, Game of the Year. Probably the most contentious game category. Everybody cares about what gets this. We got Plague Tale Requiem. We have Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And the winner of that was Elden Ring. So, Steve, what is your thoughts, first off, about the nominations? Were there anything that you think they missed? And if not, what do you think about the winner?
Yeah, no, and I think we talked about this off. I think, personally, I think we talked about when the nominations came out. I think it's a weird list. A Plague Tale, I kind of understood. There is a really strong community behind that. Elden Ring, obviously, what can we say about Elden Ring that hasn't been said? It took the world by storm. God of War Ragnarok, obviously another big game. So those three made sense. Horizon Forbidden West, the game released, but again, the game released days before Elden Ring. Got overshadowed. Horizon has that curse. And I'm just not a huge fan of Horizon. I've come to that agreement that I do want to give Forbidden West another shot eventually. Stray and Xenoblade Chronicles, I don't know what they're doing on the list. I don't know who thought that was gonna be on there, but obviously I was gonna be happy as long as Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok took it. I had a suspicion. I told my wife right before the show started, I said, well, Elden Ring has to win it. As good as Ragnarok is, as good as God of War is, it is a sequel and it is doing a lot of things that were done in the first one, which won Game of the Year that year. It's doing it really well, but Elden Ring did something new with a formula that's familiar to some people. It did something new with it. Where God of Ragnarok sort of just polished everything. So I completely understood, and I kept going back and forth on which one I would vote for. But obviously Elden Ring took it away. Really excited for that. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm super happy about that. I don't necessarily disagree. Obviously, God of War, I think almost everybody would be completely fine if that won as well. I've heard minor critiques of. I think everybody's gonna have critiques about some of these games, like the Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Souls-like games in general are just not for everybody. I found Elden Ring to have made enough choices to make it accessible enough for me. I got very close to beating Elden Ring. I couldn't beat the last guy, but I'm right there. And that's a hell of a lot farther than I was able to make it in other Souls-like games. So I think they mastered the middle zone between keeping their identity while making the amount of gameplay styles available so wide that you can make it easier on yourself depending on kind of what your approach to it is. And so, yeah, I'm not mad at that at all. Stray was a surprising one. I really, really, really loved Stray, but it's a little out of its element here. I think it's good for very different reasons. That I think, yeah, you put it in the indie category, I think it can take it away, but it gets a little tougher when you go into the Game of the Year category, just because games like the Elden Rings and the Ragnaroks are kind of just on a different level, and that's not to be reductive to Stray. And Xenoblade Chronicles, I'm not mad at. I know that is a massive deal, especially in the Nintendo ecosystem. You want a little bit of representation from them, and from what I've heard, it's been almost universal praise from the people who are into that game, so I'm totally fine with that. And Plague Tale, again, has its fan base. I don't like these games at all. I tried Requiem. It's not my thing. So yeah, overall, I think the nominations make sense, and Elden Ring is the most natural winner of that. But Ragnarok, I'd be right there with you. Best Game Direction. This is for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design. We have Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Immortality, and Stray. So very similar nominations. Elden Ring won this one as well. And the only one that I don't know Immortality. I don't know that one by name. I'd probably have to look that up. Overall, I'm very happy with Elden Ring winning this, because I think if there's any category that makes almost the most sense for this to win, it's Elden Ring. Just because when I think of game direction, it's kind of like the how purposeful is the world that you create, and how interrelated and how things lock in and fit together. And that's game direction. It's having that kind of unified vision, and are they able to execute it? And I think Elden Ring wins that by far. I think there is a purposefulness, and everything has its purpose. Everything's related to each other. Everything's designed. There's so much incentive to go around that world, and they really, I think, innovated in a way of having... They did something very special where they had a world that was expansive, and they managed to fill it. And they managed to fill it with not just like copy pasting different things to collect around the world. Like, there are genuine reasons to check out these weird nooks and crannies and caves. And I think this had one of the more innovative and purposeful open worlds that I haven't felt probably since Breath of the Wild, to be honest with you. And so I was very impressed by it. What did you think?
No, yeah, this one obviously was a hands down, I think, Elden Ring. It just, everything about it, from that moment to moment to exploring an open world where every time you went anywhere, you found something to do, you know? And it's something a lot of people say that about that, again, comparing it to Breath of the Wild or something. People said that about Breath of the Wild, which I felt, wasn't as good as Elden Ring now, looking back at it. Not game to game, but, in Breath of the Wild, you would climb 3 mountains and nothing would be up there. In Elden Ring, if you just sometimes breaking a barrel would cause the giant bear to spawn to then
exactly
to
there might be a boss up there.
It's just crazy. It's crazy. Finding dungeons, having a friend come over and I would show him, oh yeah, this is where I got this weapon. He'd be like, I didn't see this cave there. When Breath of the Wild, it's just there's nothing inside the cave anyway, and it's just
a Korok seed.
Yeah, or Korok seed, and here's this. So I think, yeah, for game direction, the creative vision and planning and innovating that small moment to moment in Elden Ring is what got it, because that's what got me. Obviously, super hard bosses is fun and all sometimes, but exploring that world is really what really won me over with Elden Ring. So I have to give it to Elden Ring as well.
We got Best Narrative. That's Plague Tale again, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and Immortality. And I actually just looked up Immortality. Looking at that, I still have never heard of that game in my life.
Neither have I.
Maybe I'm tweaking out. Maybe that's like a cult classic fan base. They got their own little thing in the corner. I've never even heard of that game. But Best Narrative. I think, this is where Ragnarok has the edge. I think Elden Ring maybe has the edge on like game design and maybe the combat. But yeah, in terms of like a story, I'm with it. Again, I haven't even completed the story, and I think that the story of this is better than pretty much almost anything I played in quite a while. And yeah, Requiem, I know, has a beloved story, so I think it makes sense for it to be there. Forbidden West actually is a little surprising. I think there's lots of good things about Horizon. I really don't think the story is that interesting. I think the first one's story was very interesting because you have that weird dynamic between like there's a world we've never seen, that mixture of technology meets kind of almost like old ancient indigenous themes and stuff like that. I think that made a lot more sense, and that was more an intriguing story. This one, I mean, where the humans went, like I think that's kind of interesting, but that was kind of surprising that they put Forbidden West there. I think they probably put it there because it's just it's a Sony first party game. It's a big deal. A lot of people probably asking for it. I know it's very beloved in games journalist circles, so it doesn't surprise me that was there. And from what I understand, Immortality is a straight up like story game. It's like an interactive like film type of game, so that makes sense why that would be there. But obviously, I'm not mad at this winner. What do you think?
No, I would obviously give it to Ragnarok as well. Again, I completed the story, so I kind of see where it goes. I think, in a world that Elden Ring and From Software games told their story just not even completely more directly, but a little more directly, then you have potential to take it away. But the fact that God of Ragnarok, gives you that beginning, middle, and end with these super diverse, super lovable, and super hateful characters, where that's what carries the game. Where in Elden Ring, I can tell you maybe 3 story points, and I played that game for like 40 hours. And when I hear people talk about the lore and what's in Elden Ring, I get upset because I was like, why don't you deliver this to me?
Yeah.
It wouldn't hinder my gameplay if every once in a while you gave me a super cool cutscene. But God of War Ragnarok takes it away. They did something really, really special there with these characters. Showing this character arc for multiple people from God of War 2018 to God of War Ragnarok to the ending of Ragnarok is really, really incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And you raise a great point. If Elden Ring had used what George R. R. Martin had kind of crafted for them, and you know how they broke that world, and they presented it in a more forward way, I think this conversation goes a lot different, because I think that world, that story in the world and the corruption and all that is a brilliant story. But it's so kind of recessed. And it's almost kind of like when you have these stories that you find out through the little like audio things, you know, like the audio journals that you find in some of these like sci-fi games and stuff like that. It's a very similar thing where it's so much kind of like you connect this little plot point over here to this character to this is the same person that, you know, like it's very, I think it's great for like people who are like hardcore Souls, like people that go into the forums and like to hash all this out. But if the story was a little bit more deliberate in its presentation, then I think it's kind of, it makes it much harder to beat in terms of the narrative. But yeah, I think Ragnarok makes a lot of sense for that. Best art direction: Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Scorn, and Stray. This one I actually maybe disagree with a little bit. I think Elden Ring is beautiful. I think Ragnarok has a good aesthetic. I don't know if it's the best art direction. Horizon's very pretty. Again, great art direction. I think there is an argument to be made that Scorn and Stray were more of inventive in their presentation of a newer art style than the other ones, in my opinion. Especially Scorn. Scorn is a wild-looking game, and it's like horrifying in its presentation. And so I think there's an argument to be made that I would probably lean more towards like a Scorn in terms of just art direction. I'm not talking about the story and how it looks and all that, but just art, and then kind of that overgrown forest, sci-fi, cyberpunk look of Stray. I think also is a little bit more innovative in kind of like in terms of being creative in artistic design and animation, more so than the other ones. That's just my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. Though, again, I like Elden Ring a lot. I like the world in Elden Ring a lot. None of it isn't stuff we haven't seen before. You know, we've seen castles, we've seen monsters, we've seen wolves, and none of it was really creatively. Here's a glowing witch. None of it was new. And same with God of War Ragnarok. Obviously, this is a world this is a sequel, so it's a world we were just in a few years ago. Not that some of these character designs aren't great, and some of these realms aren't fantastic, but it's what I expected. I was blown away how good it looked, but I wasn't blown away with what it looked like artistically. And same with Horizon. It's the same thing with Horizon. You know, it's more of what we saw, which is why I agree with the options of Scorn and Stray. Now, Scorn, I can't get over. I have a lot of issues with Scorn, and that's saved for our next episode. I'm gonna have a good time with that one. But that's where I actually think Stray has a better art direction.
Okay.
I completely agree with that. Where I think it that's what got me constantly, not even just being like, hey, play as a cat. I thought the fact that all the people in the world were these robots that knew about people, and are trying to live this very sort of cramped life now, and you're this cat with all these robots who are living like if they were humans, and the overgrown sections, those early sewer sections that lead into the super cyberpunk world. I think just that was something fresher, a little bit more fresh, and I thought it was a little bit interesting to see these, as good as it is to see Kratos jumping around and smacking things up. The animations of what we saw in Scorn just seem so much more unique. So I would personally have chosen Stray for that.
Yeah, the cyberpunk favela aesthetic thing, I think is awesome. And yeah, for me, I'm like, Elden Ring, if everything in Elden Ring was as beautifully crafted and unique as like Melania's second form, I think then we're talking a different thing. But I think that's the thing, is Elden Ring has its moments, but just looking at the character design, the world, I don't know. It's kind of like a bleak fantasy, which we've kind of seen before.
It looks like Dark Souls. It looks like Demon Souls.
Exactly.
It looks like this.
Dark Souls, Demon Souls meets a little bit of Skyrim and a little bit of Witcher. Like all of these things kind of evoke the same spirit that that actually kind of surprised me a little bit. Best score / music, we have Olivier Deriviere, I don't know, A Plague Tale Requiem. We have Tsukasa Saito for Elden Ring, Bear McCreary for God of War Ragnarok, Two Feathers for Metal Hellsinger, and Yasunori Mitsuda, who I believe worked on Xenoblade 3, I think.
So, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I know he kind of works in the RPG space. For me, I'm super happy. I love the soundtrack of Ragnarok. I would not be mad for Metal Hellsinger. That has an excellent soundtrack as well. Is it as good as like a Doom per se, which is obviously what the closest analog to be? I think that kind of maybe hampers it a little bit. I really like Elden Ring's soundtrack too, especially. I actually probably like Elden Ring's soundtrack more, like in terms of just the amount of different melodies that it plays with, probably more than Ragnarok, to be honest with you. I think Ragnarok's highs are higher than Elden Ring, but Elden Ring's is more consistent, if that makes sense, like kind of just navigating the world and the small things that Elden Ring does. Again, very Breath of the Wild like in that way. I think probably intrigues me more than maybe the average music that's used in Ragnarok, but those intense moments in Ragnarok, I mean, excellent sound design. So what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think what just tips me over a little bit more to Ragnarok is the sort of character themes that happen. You know, there's that every time when I call them Kratos stand-up moments, but you hear that dun.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
dun, you grip your control a little bit tighter because you're like, oh man, and he'll say one word, and that all just feels really, really good. And those character moments and a few characters. Again, I'm gonna keep this very spoiler free, and spoilers say other characters, some you may have met, some you may have not met, have similar styles. So when you're with this person, the music's a little more like this, and that's what just slightly gives it more to God of War Ragnarok, in my opinion.
Totally with you. Audio design, we got Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok. I cannot believe how much God of War is winning.
Yeah.
Gran Turismo 7 and Horizon Forbidden West. I mean, everything from... And when I think audio design, I think of more than just the music, but I think of how the sound plays around the world. And I think the only kind of close one for me would be Elden Ring, but Ragnarok I think takes it away, especially like just small things like the sound of the way when your axe returns to your hands, or when the blades kind of slam against the ground. Like there's these small moments that I think the audio design in this game is just spectacular, and that's what I mean of that kind of like first party polish there. So yeah, of course, no objections from me. What do you think?
No, yeah, I completely agree, and mostly everything I said from audio design kind of carries. Soundtrack comes right into the audio design as well.
We got best performance, and we got Ashley Birch for Horizon Forbidden West, Charlotte McBurney for A Plague Tale Requiem, Christopher Judge, God of War Ragnarok, Manon Gage for Immortality, and then Sunny Soljic for God of War Ragnarok. I'm going to speak on everything but Immortality. I'm actually not mad at any of these. I think they all absolutely killed it. And I don't even like A Plague Tale, but the voice acting in that game is spectacular. And I love Ashley Birch. She's great. The problem with it is Aloy is such an uninteresting character that I feel like she just got way less opportunities to really do anything interesting, to really kind of flex those kind of acting chops in the same way as the other characters did, or the other performers did that are nominated. Christopher Judge, I mean, he is just kind of a force to be reckoned with. So I mean, just his voice alone, I think there's just this insane intensity to it that I think can't be rivaled by many voice actors. But I gotta give a quick, little shout out to Sunny Soljic. I mean, the first game he was just like he was a little kid, but boy did he like step it up for this one. Like he really acted his ass off in this game, and so I just want to give him a little bit of a shout out. He killed it, and I wait, unless I'm mistaken, Sonny is Atreus, right?
Yes. He's a
Yeah,
choice in both
yeah.
games.
So I think he really stepped it up. Is he like my favorite voice actor in that game? No, I think whoever played Freya, whoever played Tyr, I think they really killed it too. Mimir's voice actor is super consistent as well. But I mean, I think it's a hard argument against anybody but Christopher Judge. I mean, he's kind of just in a league of his own at this point.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think when you see someone, not that other people aren't just, I feel like, again, Ashley Birch, I would love to see her in something else.
Yeah.
I do think she's pigeonholed by Aloy, and I don't like Aloy that much. Not that I don't like Aloy that much, I just haven't been able to really connect to Aloy in a way that I was really hoping to. Again, haven't touched Requiem and Immortality. I will probably be ignoring this every time it comes up on the on our discussion. Just because those are different. Those are parent. So from the screenshots I saw, those are live action scenes. From what I see. But when you see Christopher Judge and Sonny did this as well, which is why I wouldn't have been mad if either of them wanted. But there's something about Christopher Judge who completely took a character that existed before, was voiced by other people, and just completely took on what it is to be Kratos, and also showed who Kratos is now and continued to that. Like when you see Christopher Judge and you see him speak, and I love to watch the behind the scenes with him in the mocap suit, and you see even when he doesn't need to be Kratos, he is Kratos, and that's why he's just, from every aspect of it, just giving it is all, because it is him, and it's absolutely wonderful. So yeah, big fan of Christopher Judge.
Yeah, and one quick thing before we move on to the next subject. Speaking of Ashley Birch, I don't know if you know this, she played Mel in Last of Us.
I did not.
Yeah, so I'm telling you, she's like nasty at the voice acting. But yeah, it's unfortunate that with this nomination, this is one of her like less exciting characters, and unfortunately, she killed it in Last of Us, but it's Last of Us, so you know, there's only so many people you can nominate for that one game.
Yeah, Chloe Price in Life is Strange.
Yeah, again, her acting credits are ridiculous, and she's
Sasha,
also
wow.
Yeah, she's also in what is it called? That one show, Mythic Quest, as in like in the show. So yeah, she's a legend. But yeah, no, I'm not mad at that at all. The next two categories, I don't really have any thoughts on. Do you?
No, we can go right on with those.
Best indie game. We got Cult of the Lamb, Neon White, Sifu, Stray, and Tunic, with Stray winning. I'm not mad with Stray winning at all. What I am mad about is where's Vampire Survivor? Mm-hmm. Why is that? I know debut indie game. Excuse me? No, indie game of the year, period.
Yeah.
But... And my issue with that is that it was nominated in the next category and still lost. And I was like, bruh, you gave this both to Stray. You couldn't have just like given Stray best indie game and then debut to. Yeah. That's okay. That's an aside. I don't know why they did that. Yeah, I'm not mad at Stray winning. I think Stray is probably my favorite indie game of the year, with exception for Vampire Survivor. You take Vampire Survivor out, then yeah, Stray wins. I loved Cult of the Lamb too. I think the only difference is like Cult of the Lamb is really, really fun. And I think it has that fun factor. It's just maybe a little less impactful, maybe, for me than Stray. Sifu, I've heard great things about, but I have not gotten a chance to play it yet. And Tunic is cool, but it's Zelda. You know what I mean? Like it really is just Zelda. And I love kind of top-down Zelda games, and so that's why Tunic was just such a fun time for me. But yeah, and then Neon White I did not play. So again, not mad at Stray, but I am kind of upset with the nomination choices that they made and having a weird distinction between best indie game versus best debut indie game. That's weird to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't have much more to say. That out of these games, yes, Stray is the only one I played and beat. You know, I did a little Tunic, and it is kind of the Zelda. Sifu, I played very, very lightly. And it almost doesn't feel like an indie game to me. Again, Neon White, everyone tells me I'm gonna like that. I just haven't played it. Same with Cult of the Lamb. But obviously, I throw all of these away and give it to Vampire Survivor.
For sure.
But it is what it is.
Yeah, so since best debut is indie game, effectively the same thing, so we can skip that.
Yep.
And the next couple categories don't really do much for me. So we could probably skip down to best action game. I think that's where things get interesting again.
Yep. I'm okay with that.
So we got Bayonetta 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Neon White, Sifu, and then TMNT Shredder's Revenge. Very interesting kind of group of games here. Yeah. I'm actually super surprised that Bayonetta 3 won, but I'm not mad at that. I like Bayonetta 3 a lot. Reception to that is kind of mixed. Like, I understand Bayonetta is not for everybody, you know what I mean? Like, I think to a sizable amount of people, especially outside of the Nintendo ecosystem, it really is just like not as good DMC. And I've always been a big proponent of Bayonetta 3, but I understand that it's like not everybody's cup of tea. Especially 3 is a very weird game. So I was like super excited and surprised to see that this was not only nominated, but won. I did not expect it to win over Call of Duty at all. So yeah, I'm not mad at this. I loved Bayonetta 3. What did you think?
Yeah, I was just caught off guard. Best action game is always just such a weird one to me because, like, what does that mean? Most games have action in it. It's
exactly
a game. But when I saw the list, I was like, I kind of hope Bayonetta wins because that style. I am a huge DMC fan. I prefer those series to Bayonetta, but that style is what I would consider an action game. There's not too much adventure in it. Like, when I think action game, that's what I think. That super high combo feel. Though I have not played Bayonetta 3, I completely agree with this compared to the little I know of the other games and the ones I've played.
Yeah, I would not be mad if Sifu won because that's also, I feel like, a game that's very true to that kind of like it's an action game. It's literally complete combat. That's it. Yeah. And so I would not be mad whatsoever if Sifu won. And to be honest, because I thought Call of Duty was going to win just because of the sheer size of that franchise, and I thought they're going to give something to Call of Duty. But Bayonetta winning was cool, and then Sifu I thought would have been a very solid choice. TMNT Shredder's Revenge, I mean, that game is cool, but I didn't really think that was going to go anywhere. We got Best Action Adventure Game. We have Plague Tale Requiem, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, and Tunic. This is a very weird category. Because the way that they kind of mixed it, I personally think it's very strange to put like a Tunic and a Stray next to a Ragnarok. You know what I mean? Like, this is because then it puts them in a weird position where it's like no game out adventured games like Horizon and Stray. God of War Ragnarok is not, to me, has little to no adventure quality so much because it's so linear. And you could double back to different worlds and do a little exploration in terms of getting materials or fighting this boss or whatever. And Plague Tale Requiem is almost completely linear. Again, it's a cool little adventure. I mean, again, also, what does it mean to go on an adventure? Because you can almost make that argument for anything. You know what I mean? It's like it has combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. That can apply to. I mean, you could say that about Pokemon. You could say that about Pokemon. You could say that about Mario. That's my problem. Is it's ambiguous, and so I just don't like this category altogether because I don't think it makes sense to have these games together. I think, to be honest, if I had to choose one of these 5, I'd go with either Stray or Horizon over anything. I think Horizon's big thing is you're going on this grandiose over the top. You're literally traversing this other world that gives you these major locations to go, and you're going across the West in these expansive, beautifully crafted world where it geographically changes. The plant life is changing around you and stuff like that. Ragnarok was a strange choice for me. I again loved God of War. I'm glad that it's cleaning up. This was a weird one for me.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say on that. This category in general is so weird to me.
We got Best RPG, Elden Ring, Live Alive, Pokemon Legends Arceus, or Arceus, I think it's actually pronounced, Triangle Strategy, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. First off, great nominations this year. Gotta give a shout out. Surprisingly, like, Nintendo's really holding it down this year in the RPG category, so shout out to them. I've lightly dabbled with, I think, all of these games except for Xenoblade. I thought Xenoblade was going to win this, so I was surprised that Elden Ring won. I'm not mad Elden Ring won. I thought Elden Ring is a brilliant game. Live Alive, I very lightly dabbled on, and I dabbled in the old version. I did not play this new port of it, so I can't speak on the new port. I liked what I played a long time ago. Legends Arceus, I think, is great for a Pokemon game. I think it gets a little embarrassing, kind of, when you compare it into the larger RPG field, because, again, Pokemon hasn't done anything inventive for RPGs, I think, ever. I think, and again, this is coming from a Pokemon fan. Legends Arceus, I think, is special because it changes a format that had been locked in for so long, and now you can strafe. That's basically it. And again, this is from somebody who really liked Arceus. And Triangle Strategy, again, if you liked what they did with like Octopath Traveler in terms of like the visuals, and you're into kind of grid-based RPGs, I think this game is going to be for you. I would not be mad of that winning. So yeah, there was a number of games that I thought were probably going to win over Elden Ring, but I'm not mad to see Elden Ring win. I guess you could make an argument is like Elden Ring won because of a lot of like, did it win because of its RPG mechanics? Not really. It won kind of based on the sheer scale of what it was doing. But I think you could make a strong argument that games like a Triangle Strategy and a Xenoblade probably are better RPGs than Elden Ring is, because of the literal role-playing mechanics that exist in it. But, you know, that could be a semantic argument. I think there's an argument to be made there, which is the perfect sign of a very good nominations, the fact that it could be argued in so many directions. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree as well, where it's like, yes, Elden Ring is, you know, what class, just because there's leveling up, it counts as an RPG. It kind of, if I would have, and I haven't been able to play some of these, Legends Arceus, I wasn't a huge fan of.
Yeah.
Again, Triangle Strategy I haven't had time to go to, but I thought maybe for sure this is where Xenoblade was going to get, because I see the community talking about that game so much. And Live a Live as well. Again, not something I've been able to play. At least this new port. I've played the original one. It's been a long time, but I understood it. You know, I understood when I saw the Elden Ring. Also, when you just think about the amount of people who just probably haven't played these other games and for sure have played Elden Ring.
That's what I think happened here.
I think
to be honest,
when you look at the community, it's like everyone played Elden Ring. Not everybody played Live Alive. Triangle Strategy, I keep forgetting even released. I always think that's still coming out.
How dare you?
So that's how I how I see it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think, and especially in the Nintendo ecosystem, Xenoblade fans probably have the right to be pretty pissed about this. I think it was one of those situations where like Elden Ring is so big that any category it popped up in, a lot of people are going to be voting for it. It might not win every single one, but it's pretty close to every category that it was nominated. I'm scrolling up here. Did it lose any categories? Let me see. So it lost audio design, one art direction. Okay, it lost narrative. So it lost a couple, basically to God of War. But it's basically a God of War and Elden Ring fest this year. So it was a tough fight for all the rest of them. I'm sympathetic to that regard. Yeah. Best fighting game, we have DNF Duel, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R. I think that's a port, right, of the PS3 one?
It's a
port and like improved
and
right?
enhancement. Yeah, they added the other JoJo's.
Got you. King of Fighters 15, Multiverses, and Sifu. Some solid games here. I don't think I've played any, because I played the JoJo's PS3 version. So if that doesn't count, I don't think I've actually touched any of these. So I can't speak to this, so take it away if you'd like.
Yeah, first of all, yes, in Sifu you fight, but it's not a fighting game. Don't know what that's doing on the list. I said that from when since they were announced. DNF Duel, there's actually a bunch of, not drama. The fighting community, I'm a little bit more in tune than most people. I guess I'm part of it. We don't like this game. So there's no way that was going to win. It did release this year. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a port / enhancement. They added the other series of JoJo that weren't added then. But it just doesn't play the greatest. It plays very stagnant. They did so. I knew it had to come down to the King of Fighters 15 and Multiverses, and Multiverses obviously just has that more casual appeal. In a year that we no longer have Smash, I mean, yes, Smash exists, but in a year we no longer have that consistent Smash. and you have finally a really good Smash successor in a sense, with characters some people love, some people hate. Even though the game is microtransaction to hell, it was gonna win. It also is the only one on this list that is free to play. Everyone was able to play this, so congrats. And it is a solid game. I do enjoy it. I did play it a lot for the release time of it. So congrats to them. It is a good game. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think especially next year with like Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8, I think we're gonna probably get to a place where like maybe it's gonna be a little bit more competitive and more maybe traditional fighting games where like the fighting game community could probably get behind some of these. Because the problem with some of these is that they're like Sifu is a fighting game in the way that you are fighting, but I don't think it's necessarily what a lot of people have in mind. So for the sake of time, I'm going to be skipping around a little bit more here. Let's do best family game here. We got Kirby, Lego Star Wars, Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. I didn't know that came out. Nintendo Switch Sports, Splatoon 3. I'm going Kirby, but I think Kirby, Lego Star Wars, and Splatoon 3 are all just as good. The only one that I'm like, nah, is Nintendo Switch Sports. I got that game. It's incredibly bare bones. Very little innovation here. It's frankly missing a lot of stuff, and so I'm not really a fan of that game at all. But I would have been I wouldn't have objected to any of the other ones winning. But yeah, Kirby would have been my favorite out of all of these. What do you think?
Yeah, Kirby's the way to go with this. I have not played Splatoon 3 yet, but I kind of thought maybe that's the other one that would have won it. But Splatoon 3 like made a no pun intended, made a splash and then disappeared off the face of the earth. So I knew it was gonna be Kirby or Splatoon, but I personally enjoyed Kirby a lot.
And then let's end off here. We got most anticipated game. This is gonna be a fun one. Mm-hmm. We got Final Fantasy 16, Hogwarts Legacy, Resident Evil 4, Starfield, and Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Which I don't think this is even the first year that Legend of Zelda won. I think last year was what, Elden Ring and Zelda, right? I think it was those two.
I think so.
It was down to those two. This doesn't surprise me that Zelda won. I think, anytime you have like a mainline, especially like a successor to such a beloved game like Breath of the Wild, this didn't surprise me at all. Mm-hmm. I think the only one for me personally that would have been kind of close is I'm super hyped on Final Fantasy 16 personally. And so maybe that's where I may have voted for that one instead. The other ones, I love Resident Evil 4. I'm excited to play that game, but, Starfield, I'm not into the hype like everybody else, especially based on what I saw. Like, it looks cool, but I'm not blown away by it. And Hogwarts Legacy, not really. I don't think I'm going to play that game. What did you think?
Yeah, I completely understood it. When I saw this, I said, well, Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda is fantastic. And I completely agree. I think it is. I'm really excited for Tears of the Kingdom. I'm excited for them to, expand and polish the formula that they, struck with Breath of the Wild. Personally, Final Fantasy 16 has me completely engulfed. I've skipped most trailers. I watched the trailer we saw at the Game Awards. But besides that, I've tried to go as dark as I could. Again, not that I'm obviously looking forward to Resident Evil 4 as well. Starfield, I have no real. Yeah, Starfield. Hogwarts, it's same. I just don't think I'm not even. Like, I do want to play it in a sense. I don't think I'll have the time to, and I don't have the over love of Harry Potter that a lot of people do. So Final Fantasy 16 would have been my personal choice, but I knew for a fact there was no way Legend of Zelda wasn't gonna get this.
And so we can move on to, I think, kind of the next biggest thing that the Game Awards is known for, which is all the announcements and trailers that we got. And we got some big ones this year. So we can kick off with Final Fantasy 16. We have a release date finally, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. We got June 2023 as the release date. And that is a nice summer date. I'm excited for it because there was the kind of question. It's like, okay, where does Final Fantasy 16 fit versus Final Fantasy 7 Remake 2, and kind of where are they going to play, and are they going to get them in the same year? So this places it right in the middle of the year. I'm excited about that because we'll have Crisis Core to burn a little bit of time, and then it's not too long that we have to go before we're hitting the literal next main line Final Fantasy game. And everything I've seen related to this game looks incredible. So I'm super, super hyped about that. What do you think about that release date? Do you think they'll hit it?
I think they'll hit it. The way they've been talking about this game, the fact that they haven't even mentioned a date till this time means, that I think they're going to hit it. The last time they discussed this game, I think they said it's like 93% done. So at this point, they're doing polishing and final minute patches and QA and stuff like that. So I think for sure it'll hit it. What a gorgeous look at this game. I thought it was fantastic looking at that. They showed a little bit more summons, the battle system. Super excited. I think June, as long as the game is ready for then, I'm more than happy to play it. And then again, if this game was ready tomorrow, I want to play it. But I want to play it at its peak, like completely ready. So if as long as it's there, I think they're going to hit this date for sure. Not for sure. 90% sure they'll hit it.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident too that they're gonna hit it. Just because it's far enough out that tells me that like that they have the time to iron out whatever they have. It's next year. They got another 6 to 7 months to finish it. And this game has been in incubation for a long period of time, and every showing of it so far has looked very, very complete. So I think if they didn't have pretty good confidence, I don't think they'd put a hard date on it, to be honest, with how they know how many eyes are on that. So I think they would have probably at the very least maybe kept a quarter, like we're going Q3, Q4. But the fact that they locked into June tells me they're pretty confident. I hope they don't get booted because of the amount of eyes on this. I could see them booting it in the way that, like, if May comes and they're just, there's things that need to be ironed up, I don't think they'll hesitate to boot it because Final Fantasy is one of those franchises you want to get it right. Yeah. But no, I'm liking that they're locking into a date. The next one is probably one of the two things that completely caught me by surprise. I would not have ever predicted this ever. Apparently, Elden Ring's developer From Software has officially announced that they're going to be working on Armored Core 6. I would have never connected From Software and Armored Core before. I like FromSoft. I've played Armored Core before. I'm not into mech stuff like that. So this is very surprising to me. What did you think?
Yeah, it's super weird. I never thought they'd go back to the series. It just caught me completely off guard. I've never been huge into them. I knew they exist. I knew that it's been a long time since we've seen one. I just think FromSoft is completely something different now. But I have heard the murmurs that people have been wanting this, so good for them. I don't have any, like, I saw it and I was like, oh, okay, cool that FromSoft is doing this again, and I know people want it.
It's been like 10 years since they've even touched this, right?
Yeah, I don't even know if they did the last one. But I'm sure they did, but it's just completely not something I ever think about.
Yeah, do you know what this felt like to me? Imagine if Naughty Dog announced that they're working on the new Crash game. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah,
where it
really was.
It's like, okay, like, I love Crash. It's like, okay, I'm cool with Armored Core. I just didn't see you guys going back to this, especially with what DS3 turned into, what Sekiro was, what obviously Elden Ring just became. I just wouldn't have seen them going back to this. But I'm not mad at it. But believe me, don't get me wrong. I'm not mad at it. I just am very surprised by that. We got the next one, Hades 2. So excited about this game. It was officially announced it's going to enter early access in 2023. We didn't get like a super locked in date or even a quarter. So we don't have a window yet. But we got an amazingly animated trailer. Really cool new protagonist. I like the kind of design. It looks very much in line gameplay-wise with the first one, so they're not deviating so far from that, but they had some really cool power sets. I really love Hades, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, yo, my Steam Deck's about to go crazy with this one. What do you think about Hades 2?
Yeah, completely excited for this. I had played Hades while it was in early access, and then when it came to full launch and people were telling me things about, and I was like, man, that's not in Hades, and then I realized it's because I played such an early access version that it's features that weren't there. Yeah. So I'm excited. I probably will do the same. I'm willing to jump in early with them just because I know I will get my money's worth, and they've proved me right before. So I was super happy to see this. And I'm excited. I didn't expect to see this. Sometimes Supergiant goes quiet for a little while. So for the fact that like, nope, here's not just another game in the style. No, Hades 2. It's the sequel. Here you go. Great new protagonist. I'm excited. Day one for me.
Yeah, and this is one game I'm not worried about. Supergiant, very talented team.
Yep.
And they absolutely murdered Hades 1. I mean, in terms of roguelikes, I don't really have many critiques of that game. So the fact that they're going to go back to it, I'm very happy about. And to be honest, I didn't necessarily expect a numbered entry, a new one. So that's exciting. It was one of those games where it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if this gets a little bit Shovel Knighted, you know what I mean? With like a bunch of just DLC indefinitely. So I'm glad to see like a whole new game and kind of a whole new story, and the character design. That was another thing that was super strong about the first one. And it looks like this one is going to, match up right with that. I love some of the new characters that they've introduced. Next one, very exciting one. One that has been, I would say, more than rumored, because we knew this was kind of in the background, kind of percolating back there, but we didn't know when it was going to pop up. But Ken Levine's next game, Judas, has finally been revealed. For you guys that don't know, he's the guy that's responsible for the original BioShock. And this game obviously has very similar vibes to that, in a very good way, not in like this is a redundancy type of way. But I'm very excited about this game, and I have no doubt that this game is going to kill. I love BioShock. He is an incredibly talented developer, and so I have no doubts that this game is going to hit. I'm very curious to see what this game looks like now that so many games have been inspired by BioShock. You know what I mean? BioShock kind of invented this genre of this kind of like linear first-person story-based shooter that has led to a lot of things. And I'm kind of excited to see what that looks like in 2023. Especially with the fact that we know another BioShock is coming, and we don't have many details beyond that. So it's entirely possible that we get a BioShock and then a BioShock successor in the same year. It's possible, and I'm excited to see how they compare to one another, because again, he's not making BioShock anymore. And so I'm curious to see how they compare to it. Like it kind of reminds me of like when we saw what is it called, Outer World. And it was like this sci-fi Skyrim game, and then we knew that Starfield was coming, and we're like, okay, how are these things going to compare to each other? It's a very similar vibe to me, but I love what I've seen. The trailer looked awesome. What do you think?
No, yeah, I completely agree with you. I couldn't have said it better myself. Everything about this, it finally looks like such a return to that formula with a new twist. You've got people with just so much, and I know it's like a distant, you got to escape the starship that's going on, and the story is what carries these games. So I mean, Ken Levine's been quiet since I think he was consulted for BioShock Infinite. It had nothing to do with BioShock 2, so that's 2013 or something like that. Yeah, so
a while ago.
If the game comes out next year, which I don't think, or it's probably 2024, who knows?
Good call. Yeah, they didn't give a date.
Over 10 years. But the game looks absolutely great. I can't wait. Again, everyone who loves BioShock loves BioShock. Usually a lot of people like BioShock Infinite as well, and the DLC specifically, and that's all the stuff that Ken Levine did. I don't think he had any real... I don't even think he's on the credits for BioShock 2. So, to see just that...
Which makes sense if you play BioShock 2.
Yeah, if you play BioShock 2, you know. So, to know that the best parts of BioShock always had Ken Levine, he's that spark, I think. So, and we're going to see that for sure in Judas.
And the next one is one that I was, honestly, I will admit, straight wrong on. I did not think that we would get a direct sequel to this game. But yeah, Death Stranding 2 is officially announced. And they not only announced it, but they showed off a hell of a lot more than you would have thought. It was a full cinematic trailer. We got to look at, they had Fragile in there. They had an older Sam Bridges in there. They had the new antagonist that... Is that Troy Baker? I don't know if that was.
It's confusing.
Because they said he's in it, right? But they didn't say who he was. And the moment I saw him, I was like, is that Troy behind that mask? You couldn't see his face. You didn't hear a lot of the voice or anything like that. But yeah, we have a new antagonist. Really cool. They're just expanding everything that happened in the first one. Really trippy visuals. Like any other Kojima game, there's no central narrative that I can garner from this trailer, because he just has such obtuse narratives in games in general that there's only so much you can take away. He can show you that we got straight 4 minutes, which is long for a trailer.
Yeah.
And I still can't necessarily 100% explain what happened in there. You know what I mean? Like, what Death Stranding 2 is about, I couldn't tell you. Other than the fact that we saw some familiar characters, some people we don't know, and I am beyond excited for this because I honestly did not see this coming. I knew he was working on something, but yeah, I didn't know he was going to touch Death Stranding again. So I know you're excited about this, but what do you think?
No, yeah, for sure. You know how I preached on how good Death Stranding, and I was skeptical. Remember, I was not Kojima sold on this. I was not sold on Death Stranding. It's obviously after playing the game that it just turned to something else. So when I saw this all kind of like, we knew Kojima was going to be at the Game Awards. He's been teasing something. I knew he was teasing a game. So it wasn't until we saw, the familiar stuff with them, playing with the baby and everything. We hear Troy Baker. He's singing the theme song at the beginning, which is a cover of the song, BB's theme in the 2019 original.
Yeah, definitely recognize his voice there.
Yeah, for sure. When I heard that, I was like, whoa. I was like, wait a minute. Even my wife, who's a big fan of watching Death Stranding, came in from the kitchen. And she's like, what's going on? And she knew when she started seeing familiar things. She's like, is this it? Is this Death Stranding 2? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I wasn't even sold until it came down and it said DS2. I wasn't sold on it. Because Kojima is that way. But yeah, I'm super excited for this. My theories of where Death Stranding was going to go, obviously blown out the window. Maybe, who knows? You never know with Kojima, but seeing, an older, older characters, seeing Sam Bridges older, significantly older, at least in a sense. All these different themes. Who's this new antagonist with this weird guitar? Is it so? We don't know, and I am so excited to not know.
Yeah,
in a sense, so super happy about that.
I mean, Kojima could give you a 12-minute trailer, and I don't think you'd have more questions than answers by the end of it.
Exactly.
And yeah, apparently, just a quick little aside. Yeah, apparently Kojima rewrote Death Stranding 2 after COVID-19 pandemic, which tells me that's very recent. So I'm like, when is this game coming then? If he rewrote the whole thing, that's fairly recent. The next one, we got Idris Elba joins Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty, which is the new DLC that is coming. And we got to look at said DLC, about a minute and a half of it. Looked good to me. I already knew I was going to play this DLC. I don't really need to see any more. I like Cyberpunk 27. I just hope that this DLC runs as well as the base game runs currently. And that it's not a step back again to what we had to deal with previously. Thoughts?
Yeah, really excited about this. I'm glad seeing him join there. I kind of, when I saw this was coming up, I kind of turned away because I don't want to see anymore. Then I actually went to the bathroom and I came back, and on Twitter's when I saw that Idris Elba is in it, playing the veteran. So it'll be excited. I can't wait, and I can't wait to play it. I just hope it comes out polished. It can't come out broken. What a world that would be.
Oh man, it could though. If any dev has showed you could, damn. Next one, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. We got a long trailer. It's coming out in March, which is awesome. And yeah, I am super hyped on this game. They absolutely killed it. Respawn did this game, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, and they absolutely murdered on the first one. This was basically, I could honestly say, yeah, the first one was probably my favorite Star Wars game since Force Unleashed 1, maybe. It was a long stretch of time before I think a Star Wars game really resonated with me, and they absolutely killed it. And we got a better look at what they're doing with the narrative, dual wielding lightsabers. That looks sick. It's continuing with Cal Kestis, and we're getting more information about his journey. And yeah, I'm really loving what I'm seeing, and it's just really dope for them to basically be taking so many creative liberties while the fact that this is fully canon still. So I love how they're able to play ball with Disney in the way that keep it canon, but at the same time, it doesn't feel as constrained as a lot of maybe the other Star Wars properties that we get that are very locked into the time period. They're really taking some liberties here, and I really appreciate what they're doing there. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with everything you said. I'm excited to see this. I'm excited to, again, it's a game that I really enjoyed, and I've been wanting to replay again just because I just kind of have. And now that I know the sequel is
so close,
slated at least to March, I'm like, oh, it's the perfect time for me to brush up on it. And I'm just seeing to see what more they've changed. I see a lot of the dismembering. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for that. I'm glad they continued with Cal Kestis and they didn't do because one of two ways I was like the next game will be Star Wars Jedi something, and so I'm glad it's a sequel and it's continuing where it is. I think it's like 5 years after. So I'm super happy for that.
Yeah, that was our guess, I think, early on, where it's like I wasn't sure if this was going to be like an anthology series of just different Jedi's experience in different time periods. So yeah, I'm very glad that they're keeping it locked in with Cal, because he's a really cool character, especially once you go into kind of like his connection to the Jedi Temple when Order 66 happened and everything like that. So very interesting stuff. Next one, I don't really have any thoughts on, but Diablo 4 arrives in June 2023. Thoughts there?
I will play it on Game Pass.
Same exact thoughts I had. Next one, exciting. Street Fighter 6 has a date, June 2nd, 2023. So it's going to be also another summer game. I know you're hyped on this. I've liked what I've seen so far. For me, Street Fighter is always one of those things where like a cinematic trailer is dope, but I need to kind of see the combat. I need to see the gameplay. I love the character design stuff, but I just want to see kind of like what that experience is like. But I'm not like a super fighting game expert or anything like that, so I can't decipher some of the small things that some people are analyzing. But what did you think about what you saw?
Yeah, super excited. Again, they're starting to focus more on this secondary mode where you create a character and run around doing nonsense, training with other people. I'm more about that moment-to-moment fighting. I want to see these characters. I like to see these crazy designs. We got to see the new trailer that has DJ and a couple other new characters, or at least characters I don't recognize right off the bat. But DJ's huge fan favorite. Again, I like almost everyone's new design in this game. So it's I'm super excited for that. Again, I thought the game was closer. I'll be honest. From the way they've been talking about it, I thought the game was closer. The amount of footage that they've showed and early access they've given to people.
Yeah,
I thought
the
game was way closer than June 2nd. Because June is starting to already stack up. So summer's gonna be fun for sure. So excited, really happy. Again, all the mini games they were showing, that's fine. I just want to play. I just want to play the game. I just want to fight. I don't want all this extra nonsense, but it is what it is.
And we got Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Finally got a date on that one, May 26, 2023. It was revealed, I feel like 1 or 2 E3s ago. It was a while ago that they showed this off for the first time and confirmed that this is what Rocksteady's working on. And so we got a better look at it. Looks phenomenal. So amazing that they were able to get Kevin Conroy involved with this project, and so super glad to. It was tough to hear his voice, but I was like really excited as well to be able to kind of get that one last role. And yeah, I'm super excited about this game, and I think we're all, especially after Gotham Knights, kind of in that position where it's like, please give up, Rocksteady, please come back. We need you. But yeah, I'm beyond sold on this game, and I'm probably gonna go Blackout after this. I don't think I really need to see anything else. What did you think?
Yeah, it's the same. These are Suicide Squad. It's something I've been wanting to play. It's something I'm excited to see. We've seen it again a couple E3s and different shows. I had the same sort of moniker when I saw Batman come on the trail. I'm like, oof, who's? I was like, who's playing Batman? In this game, because Troy Baker's played Batman before. I was like, who's playing? And then I heard it, and I was like, a little part of me was like, oh man, happy, but also just so, unfortunate. Kevin Conroy did pass away not too long ago, so it was like, what a nice tribute, and what a way to go that this game is going to be his last Batman performance. So it was sad, but I was super excited. Again, I've gone pretty much Blackout. I think a while ago they did a small gameplay trailer or gameplay reveal. I did not watch that, so I watched this. I figured it was going to be hopefully just CGI, and it was. And it got me just to hear Kevin, one last time as Batman until we play the game.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Next one, we got another kind of extended, or I don't know if it is a new trailer, I think, for the Mario Bros. Movie. And it looked good. I mean, I think this movie's gonna be good. Like, I'm not super worried about this movie. I don't like Chris Pratt's voice. I still don't like it. But the movie itself looks fine to me. And I won't see it in theaters, but I'm definitely going to watch the movie. I think, from what I understand, Illumination's handling the animation, and God, man, they're beyond talented over there. So that's my one thing, is just how beautiful it looks is like the one thing that I keep getting like hung up on. But the trailer itself is fine. Did you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, it was fun. This was the first second to second clip, where it wasn't all chopped up together. I'm also not a big fan of what Chris Pratt is. I'm a fan of Chris Pratt. I'm not a fan of how he's delivering his lines so far. I need to hear more uninterrupted. This one had a little bit more of him, and it sounded okay. But when you have everyone else firing on full cylinders, it just shows. Maybe he's just not capable of doing. Just doesn't have the chops for voice acting. Not everybody does. When you have someone like Jack Black killing it as Bowser, you just have when you don't have the main star kind of up there with them, it's just not as good. But again, it's a movie. I'm gonna see it.
We don't have to mince words. Chris Pratt's a terrible voice actor.
He's
not
really
even close.
It's him. It's
Charlie Day is killing him. As Luigi, he's much better.
Luigi's killing it. So it's interesting. But I'm gonna see it. I'm not gonna see it in theaters. Obviously, I will wait until I can see this at home comfortably.
For sure, me too.
Because I just don't want to.
We got a new Tekken 8 trailer, which is really exciting. And apparently, and you might know these characters a little better than I do. Jin's mom, apparently, I don't know if it's Jun or June is going to be. Yep. June's going to be in it. And apparently, after she died in Tekken 2, I am not up to speed on my Tekken lore, so don't hold that against me. And then we got the Tekken 8 iterations of King, Paul, Lars, Martial Law, and Jack 8. They don't need to sell me no more on Tekken. I know what Tekken is, and I'm definitely going to get this game day one. I've always been, out of the fighting games that I play, for me, it's Injustice and Tekken are the ones that I'm always in there day one. Yeah. For me personally. So what do you think about what they've shown so far?
Yeah, everything looks great. I mean, this is where, after the story that is Tekken 7, we knew this is where this one was going to be, which is going to be focusing a lot about Jin and Kazuya. And obviously, I always assumed that this is where they were going to bring June back in as well. She was in Tekken Tag 2, I think, but Tekken Tag 2 is not canon, blah, blah, blah. So it's good to see her more in a canonical, seeing where the story lies with it. They did some twists in Tekken 7. So it's going to be interesting to see. Gameplay-wise, there's a lot of new features they've been showing. But cinematically, this game looks really good. I'm excited to see some of these iterations, though. King looks like King, but he looks a little bit different. I don't know what's going on with Paul. They changed his signature hair. Is now conditioned and softened. Don't know what's going on with that. Everyone else looks really good, though. I'm surprised no date, because they've been teasing the Game Awards a lot. Save the date with the 8, Tekken 8. Game Awards was on the 8. He did that trailer the day before about Don't Ask Me for Anything. Super weird that we didn't get any sort of date. So, unfortunate, but it's exciting. It looks great.
Yeah, with Street Fighter not coming until June, I'm hoping that they can beat that out a little bit and kind of fill that gap a little bit. Like, if we could get, a March date, I think it would be a nice spot for them to kind of get ahead of the Street Fighter thing. Not that Tekken can't stand on its own, but we know that Street Fighter is going to suck up a lot of the oxygen, and I don't want to wait that long to jump into Tekken, like fall or anything like that. So I'm hoping that they can go sooner rather than later and maybe hit like a March or something like that. We got Horizon Forbidden West DLC. Honestly, I'm not gonna play this DLC because I can't even make it through the base game, so I don't have much thoughts beyond there. Anything you thinking?
Nah, I can't with Horizon anymore right now.
We got Crash Team Rumble, a new 4v4 multiplayer game coming in 2023. Actually, was quite surprised about this. I'm glad that Crash is back. I think that's kind of fun, and Crash is back when they finally have these weird offshoot spin-offs things that they're doing like they used to do back in the day. This is it, obviously a lot of people, they see this in the Crash Bash basically, and it seems a little bit different than that, But I'm excited to see, just more Crash in general. I don't know if I'm gonna play this. I'm not really into multiplayer games like that. But I got my eye on it. What do you think?
Yeah, it looks fun. It looks interesting. My thing is they didn't really show what it is. It's just I didn't know if I thought it was gonna be like a platform brawler, but it looks like it's more like a 4v4 like zone control thing, which I'm not a super fan of. But
yeah,
maybe if it comes out for a cheaper price, there's no way this game's coming out for $60. It's Activision, so we don't know. But I hope not. I hope not. Maybe if this hits that more $30, $40,
$70.
That's
hit
true.
The full $70.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it is. Maybe they, team up with PlayStation or. Oh God, no! This is active. It's in a weird spot.
Yeah, it might be Xbox exclusive.
Maybe it'd be a Game Pass thing. So.
We got. I'm gonna skip a little bit. We're gonna go to Celeste's creators' new game, Earthblade. We got a trailer at that. I loved Celeste, and this game looks awesome to me. I love. They had such good music and beautiful pixel art, and it looks like this one's gonna fall right in line with that. And so yeah, I'm completely sold on that. To be honest, the moment I saw like a little bit of the visual style, and they're like, "Oh, this is from the people who made Celeste," say no more, say less. Like I'm in. What did you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought it's super cool. I'm glad. I never beat Celeste, but I did end up watching someone play it and exploring the story and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to see what they can do now with Earthblade.
We have Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon announced. This is basically a prequel. It's changing a little. It's certainly changing the art style. Gameplay is a little different, but it's a spin-off. It's obviously going to be on Switch. I'm like lightly interested in this. The thing is, obviously, I feel like this is probably for more people who have an interest in the lore of Bayonetta, which for me has never been the reason why I'm into Bayonetta. Bayonetta for me is just the antics, the fast, weird gameplay and controlling monsters and all these things. And this is definitely a little bit more tied into the lore. It definitely has a little bit of it has the combat in there. It's just not the focal point, I think, of this one. So I have my eye on this one. I don't know if this is one I'm going to jump into. Certainly not day one. Do you have any interest? I know you haven't even played Bayonetta 3, so I doubt this is probably one you're going to jump into. But
yeah, I've only beaten Bayonetta 1, and I can't tell you what happens in the story. I don't know what goes on most of the time.
I don't think anyone does, to be honest with you.
So to let alone tell me I need a prequel to tell me the story, jeez. And I, from my understanding, it's like connected a lot with the younger versions of characters you see in Bayonetta 3. So I don't. Doesn't speak to me. But I feel like that's cool to do a prequel, in a sense, in a different style. It makes sense. So it looked cool. Nothing spoke to me there.
Yeah, for sure. Next one though, I'm actually pretty interested in. Hellboy is getting a new game, and one thing it's interesting. It's a roguelike action adventure. A new story, so it's not adapting the comics or anything like that. Has the super awesome cel-shaded art style that fits perfectly with the aesthetic of the comics. Funnily enough, when I see that heavy cel shading, it immediately brings me back to almost that perfect era of like cel shading during the GameCube era. I don't know if you remember, but like when we were getting like Cell Damage and Beautiful Joe, that's what it immediately brought me back to. And I'm like, oh hell yeah, I'm in this game. I love the way it looks. I love heavy, like dark cel shading, and I like Hellboy in general. I think the lore of that world is pretty cool. I'm not like a Hellboy expert. I haven't seen like all the movies. I've only seen like the first two, and I've read some of the comics. So I think I know enough about Hellboy to probably enjoy this. But what do you think?
Yeah, same. I'm a more casual fan of Hellboy. I love the world and stuff like that. I'm surprised growing up in a super religious household, I wasn't allowed to watch Hellboy for a long time. So I saw the first Hellboy movie. I dabbled in some of the comics, so I've always wanted something to really hook me into the world. And this might get me. This might be the one to finally completely push me back into exploring this world.
For sure. Next one we'll do real quickly. We have Crime Boss Rockay City, and apparently it's going to have Chuck Norris, Danny Trejo, and Vanilla Ice. Very strange marketed game. I'm. It looked like a fun-ish FPS. I like Danny Trejo a lot, and it has some big names attached to it. I don't know if this is on Game Pass, believe me, I'm gonna kill this game. But I don't know if I'm rushing to it otherwise. What do you think?
Yeah, it just. I looked at it. It looks interesting. It's weird from the little gameplay we saw. It looks like a first-person shooter. That's just huge names. Michael Madsen, Danny Glover, Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Not people who we are that are super known for voice acting and stuff. So we'll see how that really. Michael
very
Rooker,
very movie-ish.
Yeah. And set in the '90s looks cool. It looks interesting at least. But again, yeah, this is something I'm like. Definitely a sale, Game Pass, PS Plus type title for me.
Yeah, because sometimes I worry a little bit too much when the spectacle and the cast is what is selling the game. Because again, that's a movie thing, more so than like the gameplay first. I worry about that sometimes. Yeah, you know what that reminds me a little bit? It's like the rollout of like a Beyond Two Souls, where they're just like, this is the Ellen Page game. Now Elliot Page, but at the time, and and then you play the game and it's like, oh man, that's what happens. I think when it's like star centric and not gameplay centric. So I got my eyes on it, but I don't know if I'm completely sold on it. This was an interesting one, not an announcement, but the Game Awards stage crasher arrested after invading Elden Ring's Game of the Year speech, and. For anybody who didn't know, there was just somebody randomly on stage, and then when it kind of cleared out a little bit, he went up to the mic and he said, "Hey, my turn. Real quick, I just want to thank everybody and say I want to nominate this award to my Reformed Orthodox Rabbi Bill Clinton. Thank you, everybody." I do not know what the hell he meant by that, but apparently he was promptly arrested right after, which I'm like surprised by and not surprised by. Obviously, you can't just be like trespassing people on stage, but like I wonder what he's gonna be charged with. That was a weird one. I was like really thrown off. I was like, what the hell? To be honest, when I was watching it, I was like, who the hell is that behind there? Because I was like watching a clip of it and I was like, he looks weird out there. He's just like in this oversized suit. It's like a kid, and I'm like, who is this guy? And then when he started speaking, I was like, oh, he's not supposed to be on there. That makes more sense. That was a weird one. What do you think?
Yeah, it was super weird. It's weird. It's weird to go back now and have people like dissect the footage of the game where you can see him a few rows back from where the Elden Ring crew was at. He did do it. He's on Twitter today. Jason Schreider says he did a small interview with him, and the guy's he's basically a prankster or whatever. If you think back to the days of Vitali and then Roman Atwood, he's that. I don't remember where he was from. I don't remember if he was in Russia. He's that. So he didn't mean any anti-Semitic, nothing like that. He was just, this is what he want. He thought it would be funny to do.
Yeah, that was my concern at first. I was like, oh god.
Yeah. So apparently that's what it was from. I'd have to go back. Jason didn't tweet anything else about it. He just tweeted a photo of him talking to the kid, to prove he actually did it. And said that the kid was just like, yeah, I thought it'd be funny to do that. In a sense, I don't know if maybe he's a influencer, a prankster over there, wherever he's from.
Yeah, it's like it, and I was like watching that, and I was like, is putting on a suit all it takes to get onto the Game Awards stage? Like, was there no one at some point that's like, who's that guy? Like, no, like that's not a developer. Clearly, like, who is this guy?
I don't know how that got past him.
Yeah, and I'm gonna skip down a little bit. Oh, Vampire Survivors going down to mobile, so that's exciting. That's kind of rolling out everywhere now. It's on Xbox now. It's on Game Pass, and now we're getting it on mobile. Which, funnily enough, when I first kind of you put me onto Vampire Survivor and I started playing it on PC, I had always assumed at that time that it was on mobile already, and then it wasn't until like a little bit later when I actually looked for it. I'm like, hey, is this on mobile? When my Steam Deck broke. I wanted to see. It wasn't. And so this is a total fit that makes sense. From what I understand, Vampire Survivor is based on a game, I think, called Magic Survivor or something like that. For anybody who doesn't know that there's a very similar game to Vampire Survivor that predates Vampire Survivor on phones already. And so it's cool that Vampire Survivor can go in there and compete, and I'm sure the developers of Magic Survivor are not happy about that. But good for Vampire Survivor. We already have a way to play it, which I think is the best way to play it, which is Steam Deck. Yeah. So I don't know if either of us are probably going to jump into that version. Next one, Dead Cells Return to Castlevania DLC arriving to next year. I like Dead Cells. Obviously, I'm a Castlevania stan. My only thing is, if you're going to put Castlevania DLC into another very good Metroidvania, show some gameplay. I do not care about your animations when it comes to Castlevania. I want to see some gameplay. I want to see how that looks. That's my only thing. What did you think?
Yeah, love Castlevania. I was hoping Castlevania would be here in one way or another. I was hoping for some sort of a game. I didn't think it'd be a Dead Cells crossover thing. They're saying tons of tracks and weapons and a storyline. I want to see what it looks like. Yeah, in gameplay. The cutscenes always look fun and everything, but what's it look like playing that?
For sure. And so that was pretty much the last, I think, announcement of relevance. So I guess we can talk overall real quick before we wrap up on this story. Game Awards 2022. What were your thoughts about it this year? I realized I didn't mention that. I don't watch the Game Awards. I don't know if anybody know that. I never watch them because I think it's so formatted in an old style that it's so much wasted time. I love the Game Awards in terms of its announcements. I like seeing the voice actors get their props and people go on stage. But there's so much wasted time in between it that it's just I just don't have 3.5 hours to sit in front of my TV and watch an awards show in 2023. Again, it's a nice little throwback experience, but I don't watch the VMAs. I don't watch the Grammys. I don't watch none of that stuff. But what I do is I basically watch all the announcement clips, and I'll watch all the individual when they go up on stage and they announce it. I watch those individually, kind of clipped out on YouTube, but I'm not sitting there in real time and watching the Game Awards, so I can't speak to it in that regards. But overall, in terms of announcements, I thought this year was a success. I think the nominations for the most part were correct, and in line with what I would have put up there for the most part. I'm happy with the winners for the most part. Nothing egregious that I saw that I'm you guys are absolutely bugging out. And overall, I think he had some really solid, shout out to Jeff Keighley, he had some really solid announcements there that I wasn't mad at it at all. What did you think?
Yeah, no, so I kind of reversed. I watched it all yesterday, and I was back and forth. So I usually do watch them. I like to try to make an event. This year I watched it by myself, but usually I try to make an event out of it. But I think this year was probably the best in its format. Last year it was overly saturated with all these Chinese game ads everywhere. And the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was 3 hours and a half. It was 3 hours and a half.
I heard it was long.
Pre-show. Multiple music artists were playing. Imagine Dragons played music from Bastion for some reason. It was wild. This year again, I don't remember. I watched the pre-show a little bit, but I think in total I only really spent, I think it was 2 hours and a half. It was way more streamlined. The commercials that were there and the ads that were there made sense. I don't recall ever really just being shocked that there was some sort of ad for anything. It wasn't an Old Spice commercial that I recall. I remember it being announcement. Here's the nominations, here's who won, and the person would come up and make a speech. Then there would be a world premiere. I don't recall a lot of the fluff that was in there. I still think you get rid of the pre-show and streamline it just a little bit more. Get rid of the pre-show. I don't know why they keep doing the pre-show, because they hide some of these announcements there. And that way you have a nice tight 2 hours. With some playtime for people with some of their speeches. Famously, Chris Judge went on for a while there.
As he normally does.
He did take a little while there. And just a little bit like that. Then you get a super solid 2 hours, 2.5 hours, let's say. So I think as long as they keep with this formula and improving it, I think the Game Awards could be something that people want to tune into. Because let me tell you, after last year, or I want to say it was last year, maybe it was the year before, there was a real long one where it started really late and then it was going on forever. I'm not staying up to midnight to watch some of these. So overall, I think Jeff Keighley now kind of has the right formula with it all, and I think this is where he hopefully continues with the Game Awards.
Yeah, for me, and this is from the perspective of somebody who hates kind of old school television formatting in general. I hate that kind of stuff. I would say you said 2 hours. I feel like if he can get it to a tight 90 minutes, he's good. Oof, he doesn't. I know that's tough. Cut the fluff. Cut it all. We don't need Halsey performing. We don't need it. God bless her. We don't need that.
Yeah.
Cut her off. Mick Gordon, you can have him go crazy. That's fine. But it's like, and I feel like if you don't have redundancies in terms of like 2 indie game for categories and esports player of the year, like cut all that crap and trim the amount of you trim the fat, trim the amount of different categories, and then just hyper focus on like the major categories. And to be honest, you could do it the way that other game shows do, or not game shows, other award shows do, which is like, for example, the Grammys doesn't televise everything.
Yeah,
there's tons of categories, so you can give different developers their shot. You just don't necessarily need to televise it all. You can have 90 minutes televised, focus on the world premieres, focus on the game of the year, action game of the year, accessibility of the year, influencer of the year, whatever you want to do. And then just have the world premieres in between and still hit that 90 minutes without necessarily sacrificing the amount of props you give to different teams. You just don't need to televise all of it. That's just my opinion. But you got to cut that down, man. 2 hours, a movie? No, never that. Especially in this age of like Nintendo Direct and state of plays being kind of the primary way that we receive information. That's what's winning. That's what we're moving towards. Unfortunately, you could say it's like this kind of hyper consumerist, small, bite-sized chunk culture. We're on the TikTok culture. But at the same time, I feel like he could benefit from a little trimming, because the reality is, whether he likes it or not, TV's dying. And so I understand why the Game Awards, like, that's something he sought to do, Jeff Keighley specifically, to have that kind of old school recognition for gaming, for people to take it seriously, but also to have some foresight. I think even the classic award shows are probably they're having trouble with viewership. I think it would only help his viewership if he managed to cut that down a little bit. But overall, I think the Game Awards was definitely a tremendous success, and the fact that, if anything, every year he's getting better and better reveals, I think is a great thing. And I like the fact that he has this relationship with Kojima, and he's one of the few people who can like get Kojima out. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and the only, I guess not weird thing, but it was just so strange that Xbox, though Phil Spencer was there, wasn't there. They didn't show anything. They didn't.
Yeah, they barely had anything. Plague Tale is pretty much, I think, why they were there. Even though that's not even first party, I don't think.
No, it's not. It's just it premiered on Game Pass. That was the only weird thing where it's like I get Kojima and Death Stranding is owned by Sony, so I knew that would be there in a sense. But they had their small Last of Us announcement, the Horizon DLC, and Sony's really pushing Horizon. So for that to all be done at Game Awards and not a State of Play was interesting. Final Fantasy, they have a big investment in, so that was interesting to see that Xbox in no way, shape, or form was there. Besides some of these games, yes, coming to Xbox.
Yeah, well, I'll withhold my Xbox thoughts for right now until we get to the next story. Because that I have quite a bit to say. But it was surprising and not surprising, because I thought the exact same thing. They panned to Phil Spencer. And I was like, oh yeah, we haven't gotten anything from them. And even their nomination, it was just a very quiet year for them. They didn't have that much to nominate. And personally, like, I like Game Pass a lot. I canceled my Game Pass. We can get into that. But I actually canceled my Game Pass. And there's, to a certain extent, I don't think you can necessarily count that as an Xbox thing. You know what I mean? Because any game can be a Game Pass game. Is Vampire Survivor an Xbox game? You know what I mean? Like, even though it's on Game Pass. And so, yeah, it's one of those weird things where it's like, yeah, Xbox didn't show anything, but it's like, do they have anything to show? You know what I mean? Like, where is Perfect Dark? Where is Fable? I don't know. But you would think maybe like a Forza Motorsport like trailer or something like that. I don't think that's out yet. you'd think something, but yeah, no, it was very quiet for them. They kind of just let, and then that's why I was surprised that Phil even went, to be honest, where it's like
Yeah.
they didn't have anything nominated and they had nothing to show. So I'm surprised he even went there, because it made it, I think, that much more obvious. You know what I mean? That it's like, oh yeah, where is literally they're part of the big three, and they're just not there. That was surprising. It's like a weird thing where they're like, it was the emptiness of a boycott without any of the intention, which was very strange.
Yeah, very strange. So we'll get into it. So, just to end the show off this time, we're gonna, to slightly discuss here what we thought of 2022 in review. I guess in general, what we thought all these guys, and obviously we've already started with Xbox, so we might as well continue with them. I thought 2022 was going to be a strong year for Microsoft and Xbox. You had Game Pass firing on full cylinders. People were subscribing to it. Though you had some cool games on there, none of them were yours. That's how I kind of see it. I have also canceled my Xbox Game Pass for months.
Oh no, you too?
I canceled it for months. I was like, when they drop something, I'll get on there.
Exactly.
I'll pick and choose. I was like, we got Sony doing their thing, dropping some good games and some good titles. I have my Steam Deck now, making me expand to quote unquote help my backlog, and it's all it's done is let me play a bunch of older games and Vampire Survivors, a whole bunch. And Nintendo's doing their thing every once in a while. Every couple of months I polish it off to play a game that they have. And I just realized once I canceled it, I just have not had any reason to go back to it, which is unfortunate because that's not what you want. That's not what you want. They want you to subscribe to this and constantly go there. But if you're not dropping anything, you're not dropping any game right now on there, it's hard for me to see. Now, we're talking about 2022, so I know they have stuff on the horizon to go into 2023. Hopefully,
no pun intended.
No pun intended. Hopefully, hopefully, it's unfortunate that this year you weren't here. I was playing other companies' games, some of them on your service, other ones just I happened to buy it on Xbox because, I don't know, it was on sale or whatever have you be. So overall, I'm very disappointed. I think it's been a while now that most people have been like, there's something going on at Xbox, especially at their first party studios, not at their services, not on their connection, not at their hardware, but your first party studios are doing something when the last thing people can think of the last couple of years is you kind of dropped Halo and you gave it to us half delivered anyway. So, what's your sort of feeling on, continue on with the way you were saying for your 2022 in review?
Yeah, it's tough because 2022 as a year, kind of full summary, I thought was a great year for games. I mean, we got so many, and it's just so insane that like none of them are Xbox games, like nothing.
Yeah.
And I think Nintendo did their thing, and we'll get into that, and PlayStation did their thing, we'll get into that, and then Microsoft just nothing. And it's weird because I think the whole narrative of like Xbox has no games has been a narrative that's been said for a long time. I mean, I was hearing that back in kind of Xbox One's early days, which it has had its moments where it was true, but I think things kind of quieted down for a bit where it's like, okay, they had their Halo Infinite, some people like it, some people don't. It's one of those things. Forza in the racing community is about as good as it gets, in my opinion. And so Microsoft had a moment where it's like, okay, we're getting some momentum here. And Phil Spencer was very forward about the fact that it's like, okay, yeah, things are quiet. We had a first party issue for quite a while, but that's being rectified. That's a limited thing that, give it some time. We have things being incubated right now, and they're going to start rolling out. And plus, we had all those acquisitions on it's like, oh man, they're picking up this, they're merging with this. Things are about to change dramatically. And then an entire year happened, and just nothing from the first party. And I'm like, this is insane. And it was one of those things where like I was such a massive proponent, and I still am in a way, a massive proponent of Game Pass. I think it's one of the best values in gaming, period. And the problem was, there was always a healthy stream of really fun experiences that the cheapest way to go about playing that was on Xbox. And Xbox was a powerful console. I loved my Series X. I was having a great time with it. It was fast. I loved the quick resume functionality. I loved the fast delivery or smart delivery, functionality with their games. I was just so happy with my Xbox that kind of first year as it came out. And so I was so ready for 2022 to be the year for Xbox. This is their time, because I was like, okay, Redfall, I was hoping maybe Redfall would be ready. I expected maybe Motorsport to come out. I wasn't sure if like we were going to get something for Gears, maybe something small. I was ready. I was hoping that Avowed came out this year. Or at least maybe at the tail end of this year, maybe something with Fable. Where is Perfect Dark? There's all these things that they had in effect that are first party Microsoft games that I know, if done right, could just murder. They might not be Game of the Year, but they certainly could give Sony a run for their money. And then the entire year came, and then I was like, all right, well, the first party's not outputting, but hey, at least we got Game Pass. And then another month passed, nothing. And then another month passed, another, indie games, and another indie games, and then you realize like, oh man, like, and then their big thing, oh, we got this big thing coming to Game Pass, awesome, what do you got? Deathloop, like Deathloop, like that's the big thing, a game that came out a year ago on PlayStation. It's tough, man. And it was one of those things where it's like I'm paying upwards of $12 to $16 a month because I had that kind of ultimate thing, because it locks in with your Game Pass Gold, or Gold, whatever it's called. And so I was like, you know what, I'm not playing online because unfortunately for Xbox, most of my friends don't even have Xboxes. I think it's like you and me basically are like the only ones I know with Xbox Series. And so most people are either last gen Xboxes or on PlayStation. Everybody got PS5s that could afford next gen consoles. And so it's one of those things where it's like, this is no longer the best value in games, basically. I'm kind of burning $15 a month that could be used elsewhere. To be honest, it could be used on my Steam Deck, because to be honest, $15 goes a lot farther on Steam than almost any other digital ecosystem, period. And so I feel like Steam Deck kind of cannibalized what little I was playing Xbox at the first half of this year. The second half kind of just evaporated. Doesn't mean that I dislike Xbox, doesn't mean that I dislike my console, but it's like, you've given me nothing at this point. You've dried me out here. And so I'm at this point where like I played almost exclusively, in terms of consoles, I'm all PlayStation these days, and I don't want that to be the case. I love going back and forth between my consoles, but it's effectively become my Fortnite machine, because I can move my Xbox to wherever I want, and it's crossplay, so I can play anywhere. That's effectively what it's become, because I have my PlayStation in the living room, and my girl plays that, so I bring my Xbox in here. But yeah, I'm really like saddened and disappointed with Xbox's performance this year, because I did not expect that. I didn't expect nothing. Did I expect them to be able to beat out God of War and Last of Us 1 remake? No, of course not. I didn't expect that. But to have something, like, there's like this clip that you'll see around where there's one guy's getting jumped and they're like, fight back, you know that? Like that's literally the game industry this year. That's Xbox just getting jumped and they're not swinging back. And it was a crazy thing to see. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Xbox. Was just like, I think we've seen disappointing performances from all of the publishers previously before. Nintendo's had disappointing years. PlayStation's had disappointing years. But it's been a long time since I've seen a major publisher have nothing. You know what I mean? Like, that was crazy. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, no, that's true. And then I completely agree with that. I couldn't say it better myself. That it's just unfortunate, because it's not what we expected from them. It's not what we wanted. It's not what we were paying you for.
Yeah.
So we can move right along right into, well, Sony. Sony had a slightly better year, I think, in my opinion. I think, though it wasn't this blockbuster of a year where they were dropping things super hot. Like, I always think back to the 2018 when they were dropped. When I think in a few months they dropped, God of War, Spider-Man, Detroit Become Human.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah,
crazy year, and so, but they had some solid things. They had Horizon. Whether we have our own feelings on Horizon, that is a AAA game in every way, shape, and form. They had The Last of Us Part 1. The Last of Us remake, which again divisive, but when you're playing it, that is a hardcore AAA game. God of War, hardcore AAA game. So you had some big hitters. I think Elden Ring sold more on PlayStation than elsewhere. So they had a solid year. They didn't have the greatest year. I don't think they had this super constant stream. I know publicly they had a few little outings and stuff like that, and but not only were they prepping with a few purchases here and there of different studios and prepping. They are starting to finally turn that wheel with, all right, this game's coming to PC. This game's coming to PC. They launched the 2 Spider-Man games on PC. They're finally getting to that point where I think we all expected them to be, where, yes, you want to play these games day one, you got to get it on our console. You're willing to wait? All right, and pay, not a premium, but pay that full price still? Well, yes, it's come in, and thankfully they're doing Steam, especially with the way Steam is working with Steam Deck. It's really nice to see that. So how were you feeling with PlayStation?
Yeah, funnily enough, you actually demonstrated the exact point I had for PlayStation, where it's like PlayStation is in the perfect spot where it's like, think about what you said. Like, they're not, it wasn't 2018, and maybe you could say, like, I think, what was it, 2020 when it was Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima in the same year. They're in the perfect spot where they're just competing against themselves. And that is a good position to be in, you know what I mean? Where it's like all you're doing is being compared to yourself, because that's how far ahead you are. I think that's a good position for them to be in. And yeah, I thought it was a very solid year. Thing about Horizon is, like, I think both of you and I were not the biggest fans of the game, but we can also differentiate between, like, not good game and not for me. And that is the thing for, like, Horizon, where it's like, yeah, I thought it was kind of boring. It didn't really do it for me. I loved Horizon 1, but I think I got everything I needed out of Horizon in Horizon 1, so it was already kind of an uphill battle for me, where it's like I didn't necessarily need more of that. And it certainly is just more of Horizon Zero Dawn. And so that's the thing for me. Like, it was just not really for me. But yeah, like, Last of Us, I mean, they remade one of the best games of the modern era. So that's kind of like a no-brainer. We all knew that was going to hit. And I think the only real solid debate around that was, like, should they have charged $70 for it? Which is a valid critique. But I don't think anybody played that game as, like, trash. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'm sure those people exist, but I think for the most part, it did what it needed to do. And then God of War, I mean, undeniable, one of 2 of the games of the year, which is that and Elden Ring. And so they're in an excellent position, and I think they delivered. They did what they needed to do. And I also, was Ratchet and Clank this year? No, right? That was last year.
That was last year.
All right, I'm just making sure, because I was like, I don't want to miss anything. Yeah, no, they killed it, and I'm very excited to. And the great thing about them is they're never in a position where it's like they drop all bunch of stuff and it's like, Sony, it's dried up, you got nothing. It's like, nope, they got Spider-Man 2 is right around, not right around the corner, but it's coming somehow. I don't know how they're turning around games that fast, but no, they got things in the works and that are coming, and I think now Death Stranding 2 is on the radar of things we can kind of pay attention to, and I'm just very impressed by Sony, and it's a good thing because launching a new console is tough, and not only have they found a way to have a steady stream of content to justify having the PS5. I don't know of too many people these days that are like, oh, I have the money for a PS5, but I don't want to get it because there's nothing worth playing on that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's most people's critique, and that's a good thing to solve, because I feel like that was a lot of people's concern up front when it first came out, which was like, what is there to really play on it? What is there to motivate you? And that was a critique I think both you and I had for Xbox and PlayStation as well. And I feel like PlayStation rectified that, and unfortunately, Xbox didn't really. And Xbox didn't for a couple reasons. I think it's because of the offerings being dried up, and also for the fact that they have that kind of unified ecosystem where you can play anything everywhere. There's a pros and cons to that. PlayStation is starting to really roll out experiences that are definitively PS5 experiences, which I think is great. So yeah, they delivered. I'm very, very happy with them. And I think they're in such a sweet spot where it's like people are only holding them to themselves. You know what I mean? Nintendo does their own thing. Some people compare them to others. Some people don't. But PlayStation's in a point right now where outside of the Activision merger, which obviously is perturbing the hell out of Sony for many reasons. Other than that, in terms of a competitive thing, Microsoft really doesn't seem to be posing much of a threat to them. And it seems like to some degree they're also catching up a little bit on the console availability pipeline as well. Not that it's easy to get a PS5. It'll be a while before that's the case. But I feel like they've definitely started to get into the position where a lot of the people who wanted PS5s are able to get them. And that's good. So not only did they have the software to release this year, but they're actually starting to fix the hardware issues as well. And yeah, I almost couldn't be happier. Other than the fact that, like, you know, could I use one or two more first party games? Sure, I'd love that. But they did what they had to do, and I'm not mad at it at all.
No, yeah, exciting. Let's gotta move on to the little one that could, Nintendo Switch and Nintendo's still trucking along. You know, I think about it and I'm like, man, did I even play my Switch this year? And there was you know, I spent some time with Mario Strikers Battle League, Kirby. I enjoyed a lot. I beat it. You know, I haven't played Bayonetta 3. Bayonetta 3 was big, but then that's kind of it. You know, the rest of these games, there were a lot of like indie games and stuff like that, and the ones that I did want to try even just haven't had the time to, or I did get it on Steam. But all in all, Nintendo, for better and for worse, has been just steadily, you know, they've plateaued with, you know, even the games that we thought were gonna really pop, like Mario Strikers coming back. That's been a fan demanded game for a long time. Splatoon 3 came out, and again, I just don't hear people speaking about it. People talked about it for that weekend. It kind of disappeared. Xenoblade has its crew. I think Nintendo, especially with what everyone's been telling me about Bayonetta 3, and to an extent Pokemon, it's time that they do release a new console, or at least a revision of the console. You know, the famously rumored Switch Pro, and all the famous rumors. We've talked about that constantly since we've started this show. It's more apparent than ever, especially when you come to those kind of games, which is surprising because Kirby and them, though a completely different style game, slower paced game, ran really good, or at least really well in my opinion. But I think it's time that coasting, we do what we do really well, is kind of coming to an end, and we'll see, I guess, this May in 2023 with Zelda, how that transforms. You know, how are you going to take all these crazy risks with, at this point, you know, the Switch came out in 2017, and hardware-wise, it's the same. So no extra power, no extra strength, no extra resolution. It's going to be interesting to see, you know, and I kind of wish I had more reasons to take out my Switch and play. You know, it's weird that the year, you know, you have this super spread out Mario Kart DLC, you know, but the year that you don't have that constant Smash talk, that constant this talk, it's unfortunate that the year that you don't have that is the year that everything else is kind of mid. You know, Xenoblade is a small game. You know, Splatoon, I think, is kind of done all it can, especially when you release them so closely together. You didn't do Mario Strikers correct. You didn't do the successor to Wii Sports correct. The only one I think that you really hit on, is Kirby. And Kirby can't carry a whole console, especially when we've had, I think, 2 other Kirby games and now another Kirby game coming out, which is a port. I think it's time that they have to sort of start taking chances, in a sense that you gotta do it right. You know, you give us what we asked for. People have been asking for Mario Strikers, and I keep using that one as an example just because that's the game I kind of thought was gonna hook me back into it, because I was a huge fan of both Strikers on Wii and on GameCube, and it didn't. It was just bare bones. So how are you reflecting on the Nintendo Switch, on Nintendo in general in 2022?
Yeah, Nintendo, they did their thing generally, and it's tough to kind of analyze them because they're in such a different spot, specifically in their life cycle. I mean, we're talking about 5-year-old hardware here. That, mind you, say what you want about the Switch. I love the Nintendo Switch as a console, but it was not state-of-the-art tech when it came out in 2017. It was already, I think, an older kind of chipset that was used in like phones and stuff like that back when it was released in 2017. So now, fast forward 5 years later, it does start to feel a little particularly dated, but I feel like considering the nature of the hardware, this was a year that they very obviously focused internally. They focused on the people they already had. I think it's the moments where you get the Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom, the Mario Odysseys, where they're really reaching outward. Or even those third-party relationships where they're trying to pull people into the ecosystem. This year, it seems like they kind of hyper-focused on the people that they had. Kirby's always been one of those franchises where it's like people in Nintendo ecosystem care about Kirby and literally nobody else. Kirby does not move the needle anywhere else. You had Splatoon 3, again, an embedded ecosystem that already existed. People that are sold on it, and they keep moving along. Xenoblade, same exact situation. People are sold on it. Bayonetta, same thing. People are sold on it. So that's the kind of their approach this year, where they didn't really have a strategy to reach outwards, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think one thing is just a timing thing. It's like it takes time for them to turn around a new Mario game, a new Zelda game. They weren't ready to fire yet, so they do what they can with the other teams that they have. Another real reason for that is I think everybody knows, and especially Nintendo knows, the Switch has climaxed. The highest of the Switch's kind of performance and the best games and stuff like that probably already have happened. We're 5 years into the life cycle. The average life cycle, I think, is these days closer to 7 years, which is kind of shortening, especially with hardware revisions. You're getting like the PlayStation Pros and stuff like that. So we're on the tail end, I think, of the Switch's life cycle anyways. And so for them, I think they've gotten most of the people that the Switch is going to still sell, but I think they've gotten most of the people that they're going to have so far. So might as well just keep the people you have as happy as possible. Thus why you'll have like an investment like the Mario Kart DLC. They're not trying to sell people on Mario Kart. They're trying to entertain the people who already have it. You know what I mean? And so it's the strategy that Nintendo took. And I think generally it paid off for them. You had 2 Pokemon in 1 year, one of which I think was pretty solid, did what it had to do, was generally well received. And then the other one on the entire end of the spectrum. And that's a tough one to analyze because that's such a new story. Yeah, that is a flop kind of. No way around it. I think that Nintendo is probably surprised about. Judging by the reaction to it, I don't think they expected to be launched. I don't think they would have launched a game that big in that state if they knew it was in that state. Now, how a Nintendo... it's technically not a first-party game, but we all know what it is when it comes to Pokemon. It's functionally a first-party game. You know what I mean? The fact that somehow got past QA and Nintendo signed that off will forever blow my mind when you know how Nintendo is with their quality in terms of what they sign off on. So that always surprised me, and I think that's a little blemish. Not even a little. I think that's a significant blemish on the kind of way you have to look at Nintendo's performance this year, and it's so late that so much of their year would have been like a good year for them if it wasn't for that little thing at the end there. That I think you have to hold them their feet to the fire a little bit for that Pokemon thing. Yes, it is Game Freak, but ultimately the name Nintendo, that seal of approval, that stamp, is very rare. Not a lot of people get that, and so the fact that somehow Scarlet and Violet, the next full gen Pokemon game, came out on the Nintendo Switch at the tail end. That was their winter offering this year, and somehow that came out in that state. You got to hold them to that. And we're in the place right now with Nintendo where it's a dangerous place to be, where it's like your hardware is basically maxed out in terms of what people can extract power from, with exception for your first party. And that reminds me so much of the late age PS3, where basically every third-party dev was like, bruh, we need new hardware. Like, we can't extract any more power out of this. We're having trouble. And I don't know if you remember this, but yeah, late stage PS3 360 games, they were having some difficulties. The frame rates were rough, man. They were having trouble hitting that 30 frames per second, and everybody was hyper focusing on but look at Last of Us, because people forget that was a late PS3 game, and look at GTA. But it's like, look at the teams you're talking about here. We're talking about Rockstar and we're talking about Naughty Dog. Everyone else was struggling, and I think that's the position we're at right now with the Switch, where it's like, if you're not Nintendo first party and you're not like, I mean, that's almost it at this point. Platinum's struggling. Obviously, Game Freak was struggling on the friggin' 3DS. They couldn't get nothing to run right. Basically, since the moment they went 3D, everything has run atrociously. This one is just particularly bad. Nintendo's just in a position where I feel like they need a hardware position, because you can't be in a position where only your first party can extract hardware. Because Kirby ran and looked beautiful, but and Splatoon did its thing too. But all the third party games are really struggling here. If it's not like an indie game, and basically everything major, like a big scale thing, is not even on Switch. They're not even trying. They're not even touching Assassin's Creed on a Switch. You know what I mean? And apparently they're going to push to get like Call of Duty on Switch in the future. We'll see how that goes. It's going to be a rehash of what we used to see for the DS Call of Duties, to be honest with you. Nintendo's in a weird spot where it's like, I feel like they're on the very precipice of like catastrophic Wii U position, where it's like, all the third parties jump ship because they cannot get things to run on that. That's where Wii U was once upon a time. And obviously the Switch is infinitely more successful than the Wii U, so I don't mean to put them down like that. But they're in a tricky spot. But I think generally speaking, Pokemon aside, it was a good year for Nintendo. It was a reserved year. It was an internal focused year. But if you're into Nintendo games, you had a steady stream of things to play throughout the entirety of the year, technically. If you're into it, if you're into Splatoon. But if you're like not into even one of those games, there are massive holes in the schedule. If you're not into Xenoblade, there goes a huge chunk of 2022. If you're not into Splatoon, there goes the summer. If you're not into Kirby, you had nothing to play in the front end of the year. And God forbid you're only into Mario Kart. You played your Switch, 3 times this year? 2 times? Which is basically you. And so they're in a rough spot where I feel like, thankfully, their next big game, which is Zelda, is first party. So I have no doubt Zelda's going to run fine. But if they want to do anything really genre pushing, really technically pushing, they need new hardware. And I'm not necessarily one of the people that are like, they need to do it today because everybody's failing. Not necessarily, but I think it's certainly something to look at within the next year, before you start having jumping ship. Before Ubisoft is like, I don't know if we can do this anymore. Before EA is like, I don't know if we can do another sports title on Switch. You know what I mean? You don't want to be in that position again. And Nintendo did a beautiful job releasing hardware that was good enough for everybody in 2017. They're on the tail end of that, where it's not good enough anymore, because we're having consoles talking about literal 4K 60. 720 15 is not going to cut it in 2023. And so I hope for their own sake they have an answer to that. But thankfully, they were able, by the skin of their teeth, I think, to pull something off this year. So if I had to give them a number score, it's like a 6.5. Like, they did their thing. They did just good enough to not be a bad score. But, I got my eyes on them. Like, I'm like, cuidado. Like, watch out. Like, because, I don't know if they can pull another one of these off next year. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. I completely agree. It's a year where I think they just, like I said, plateaued, coasted almost, and they're like, get us by. And it's a year that you don't want to do that anymore. So you can't do it also multiple years in a row. So
buying time till Zelda, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes for all three of them, where it's, you guys are the ones who carry this stuff through, and we're watching you in this day and age. We're watching you hardcore than ever. So, especially when you have really stiff competition. But it was definitely it's a special year in both the good and bad ways, is how I see it. Yeah,
it reminds me actually very similarly to 2021 Xbox, actually, When they had the major Forzas and the Halos, it didn't really pull anyone new in, but it was good to satisfy the people who are already in the ecosystem. And the only difference is Xbox, with all the problems they have incredibly powerful hardware that is to some degree future-proofed for the next 5-6 years or so. That can handle what the developers want to do on it. Nintendo is not in that position, so their hands are forced. So fingers crossed for them. I think 2023 is going to be very make or break for them. I think either they have an answer to the hardware concerns and they're Zelda's a hit. They let that be the perfect cross-generational thing, just like the Breath of the Wild was for them. Yeah. They launched the new hardware, and they're good to go from that point. Or they don't launch, and then they're in a position where if you're not first party, there's nothing we can do for you, basically, because nobody can get their games working on there. Because you have to keep in mind, from what I heard, developers are having a hard time getting games to run on the Series S. That's seriously hampering development, from what I hear. Imagine trying to play ball with Switch. Imagine that in 2023, where you have games like literal Elden Ring and God of War and Horizon coming out. And these are the games people are talking about and paying attention to. Look at what Madden has become, what Forza's become, even the casuals in quotes, like the FIFAs, how technically demanding those games have become. And then you're telling me a 6-year-old tablet is what me as a dev gotta make that work? Hell no. It'd be easier to skip it, you know what I mean? And especially if I want to have my game release on a handheld, there's this beautiful thing called the Steam Deck, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's the only thing I would say is concerning. But overall, 2022, I'm happy with this year. Is it my favorite year? No, but I think generally speaking, 2 out of 3 of the developers did their thing, and I don't have much to complain about.
No, I agree.
And so that's our show. Long one this week. I knew it was going to be a long one, 2 big stories. And our next show is going to be really fun, too, because we're going to do the NeoVintage Game Awards. We waited to basically make sure that we capture all of December's stuff so we can have, for example, particularly Crisis Core to talk about and make sure we don't miss anything. And we'll be able to award our games of the years and our, action games of the year and stuff like that. And our the cursed Stinker of the Year award is going to be going out this year, and we're going to have a united front this year. So I'm excited for those discussions. I think it's going to be a really fun time. So this is the NeoVintage show. I'm Jerome. I'm here with
Steve. Hope you guys enjoyed.
And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.